big thing is to not let the pressure of the recording get to you.
Yeah. No, I'm always worried about that, especially with bringing people on. It's like, dude, I just want you to be you, be authentic, be genuine. Let's just have a conversation.
That was always my issue when I did my first handful. Is I would have such a vision of how I wanted the conversation to go that as soon as I hit record, it was like I was like jumping from bullet to bullet and like just like tense the whole time.
Yeah, because then you have the pressure to perform. I felt the same thing whenever I'd go up and like play the piano or recitals or something. It's like, dude, I played this piece flawlessly. I can play it in my sleep at the second. It's like I know people are really listening. It's incredible.
Yeah, and it makes it hard to listen to, and then you just feel it the whole time. So it makes the conversation not even fun, which is like the whole reason I wanted to start my podcast was because I always admired people who had these like passions about things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen to it, each episode is about, whatever that person's really into.
Yeah.
And the conversations were just fun, and I thought recording them would be a cool thing. But then when I started recording them, it was like the conversations weren't even fun, and they were bad. They weren't even worth listening to.
Yeah, it's like a double whammy.
Yeah.
I wish you could like whip out a podcast. I don't know if it'd be unethical, but like without the other person even knowing, just super casual. Because I feel like I have super cool chats like in the sauna with all these guys, and I wish I just had a little device to like beep, and it just goes, and you're good.
Yeah, it would be more candid, and it's a skill you have to learn. And then it's on top of that, you have to learn it as like a host, but then another skill you have to learn after that is to get the other person to feel that way.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's something I really admire about all these big podcasters is they have an ability to really draw out a person's passion, all their niche interests, make them feel comfortable, and they ask good questions. But like, I don't know. But it's also not intimidating or formal.
Right.
It's very flowy.
Yeah. The biggest thing I found was talk less.
What's that one line in Hamilton where it's like, "Don't what you for?"
What's that in?
It's from Hamilton, from Lin-Manuel Miranda, like the play. I mean, you're probably not a huge play guy, right?
No, but that's the one about the founding fathers, right?
Yeah, with Alexander Hamilton.
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah. That's a good one.
It's just a fun line. I forget who even says it, but yeah, it's an interesting line where he's like, "Talk less, smile more. Don't let them know what you stand for or what you're against," which I totally butchered, but
I don't know if I agree with the rest of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, he's not painted out to be the hero of the story by any means.
Yeah.
But
well, it's like if you talk, like the point of it is to, at least mine, is to get the other person to like show their passion.
Yeah.
So if I'm dominating the conversation,
kind of defeats that purpose.
Yeah, it defeats the whole purpose. Then I may as well have just been on it myself.
No, I get that. And that's kind of the idea with these is just get a lot of, every person's unique, every person's interesting, but get a lot of interesting takes on life and just let people talk with them. I feel like especially, maybe it's just my business school perspective on life, which take it out with a grain of salt, but there's such an emphasis on networking with individuals who hold cool jobs or things that you admire. And so I think it'd be a really cool platform to interview like everyone from FBI agents and doctors and just all these cool expertises and career paths and have them on and have people almost have a sit down one-on-one network meeting with them, except they're just participants and not the ones actually asking questions.
Yeah. I think that's what's so cool about like when you look at like Theo Vaughn's podcast, is he's such a non-professional guy.
Yeah.
But then he'll like talk to the president.
Yeah, dude, you see that one? He's like talking about crack cocaine in front of Trump. He's just like,
Or he'll talk to billionaires, and it's like when a billionaire sits down, even Joe Rogan is, while his is casual, it's still more formal and more refined than Theo Vaughn's is. So when you see someone on Theo Vaughn's, you almost see like what they would have been like at a family dinner.
Yeah.
Or like almost like a childlike nature. Which is really cool.
That's interesting. That's kind of a gift that Theo has. I haven't seen like a ton of his content, but from what I have seen, he's just like a genuine person through and through.
Yes.
Like for better or for worse, I think there's something to be said for being a social chameleon and adapting your language, behavior, whatever. But there's also something to be said for just being like the same consistent person no matter what the situation is.
Yeah. He's also very like he's about as centrist as it comes. He doesn't lean politically too far either direction. And just in the way he lives his life as well, not even just politically like conservative or liberal, but like ethically and the way he lives his life. It's about as center and as open-minded as it comes.
Yeah, just trying to be the best he can, given his resources. Yeah, no, I respect that. I like to think of myself the same way. Like
that's what I strive for.
Yeah,
right. I definitely have my bias and I lean into them from time to time, but I always try to not be too harsh one way or the other.
Yeah, be an objective, almost third party, just here to absorb information.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, nobody really knows. You just know what's worked for you and what hasn't.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, you said you had an intro in your podcast. Is it like something musical that you put together or what?
No, I've thought about doing a professional-ish one, but I try not to even cut mine, like edit it all. I try
Yeah.
to because I don't like the time that it takes to do it.
That's kind of my strategy with this. Just like record and go.
Yeah. So what I do is I say, all right, so I usually start off by just chatting with them like this. And then at some point when I start to feel the tension go away, I'll be like, all right, I'm about to hit record. Or like I will have already hit a record and I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna do my intro real quick. And then I'll just do it.
Oh, so it's like an auditory thing you do.
Yeah. So I'll just be like, welcome to episode 20 of the Mason Grant show.
Nice.
And then I'll be like, today I'm here with so and so, who is this, this, and this, and I'll talk about it. And then I'll say, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? And then I let them go. And then it usually starts the conversation.
Well, welcome to the J Poet Show, everyone. Episode 1 with the one and only Mason Grant.
Let's go.
Yeah, I'll have to workshop that. We'll see. I like the idea though, just because it gives us some degree of formality, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know.
It's a nice segue into what you really want to talk about.
It's almost like I heard someone say that a big intro on like YouTube or podcasts, if the person has a big emphasis on their intro, it's an ego thing because they want them to look like they're like a part of something.
Interesting.
So I've tried to keep mine really low key and just kind of like just know that it's starting. It makes it feel a little professional, I guess, but like the content is really what people are for.
That's fair.
Most of the time, if the intro is too long, I'll start skipping through it.
That's true. I hate it when it's like 30 seconds of an intro. Like, bro,
it's too much, and it's like, I'm not here to hear about like who you are and what your show is. Like, if the content's good, I'll listen to it enough to get that.
That's fair. No, that's what I like your intro then. Just like, here's your brand image. Here's what's going on in this episode.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And it's almost like welcome to this show. And then I'm here with, and then instantly the focus is on the person, which is the point.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's neat.
And then I kind of just let them ramble because they're always really nervous. So they're always like, my name's Mason and I go to UVU and I'm studying whatever and I'm going into this field and say the episode's about like chess. I just want and like I'm really into chess. I've been playing chess for this long and blah 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 blah. And then they usually like will stumble enough that I can pick something to then jump into the actual.
Start asking them questions on it, get them more comfortable.
Yeah, but it's funny watching them be really nervous.
Yeah,
and then I'll immediately take control, and then they open up because then at that point it's just like, oh, someone's interested in what I get excited about, and then they love it. Even no matter how nervous they are, I've noticed it always switches right then.
Yeah, that's kind of a fun part about finding what a person's passion is, like what gets them excited. Is like when you hit it because it's very clear,
and then you just harp on it.
Yeah,
and then it's like. I mean, from like, if you're looking at it from like a business side, it's just free content for you because they'll just harp on it. But then I get really excited when someone else gets excited.
That's cool.
Like I don't really care about chess, but I loved hearing my buddy Dylan is the one who did it. I loved hearing him just like get all excited about like the history of it and the OGs of it and like the current goats of the game and the opening moves and the pacing of it. And I'm like, I don't even know what any of this means, but I'm stoked that you're stoked.
That's cool. Would you say you have pretty high empathy?
What does that mean?
Just that you can relate with an individual? Because it sounds like you may not be passionate about that particular topic, but you really resonate with the emotions behind that topic.
Yeah, I feel like I can match energy pretty well. I think I can be empathetic, I guess, if I want to be. But I also cannot be. Like, if I don't think someone deserves it.
Gotcha. Like, anyway, stoicism.
Yeah. But, like, if it's, like when it comes to excitement or if someone's really, really upset about something and I'm not necessarily upset about it, like I can be there for that person, I guess, and like match that.
Yeah.
But that takes some effort sometimes to do.
Yeah.
But when it comes to excitement, I feel like a lot of the time it's like maybe a little bit of effort at the beginning.
Yeah.
But then I like start to get excited.
And the ball gets rolling.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, that's one of my hopes with this podcast. And it's kind of cool to think of where this can go. Like this first episode, honestly, the first like few episodes are going to be so rough. There's going to be no consistency. But I'm hoping to get a pattern down. And that's definitely the direction I want to take it, where just get people talking about their passions. Like, yes, you have the whole networking side that's talk about like what's it like being a doctor or whatever for those purposes. So just the excitement too. And I already told you this previous to actually beginning the recording, but that selfish aspect of it gives me an excuse to talk with cool people.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
really,
like
really looking forward to that.
It's a segue to like, because if you meet someone and you vibe with their passion, y'all hit it off, and there's a connection there, and it's like, hey, like, do you want to come over and like talk. It's like that's kind of weird.
So weird.
But if you're like, hey, like I have a podcast and it has 1,500 listens,
yeah,
and like I'd love to have you on it. I just chat with people who are like into something, and you're really, really like you're a BYU basketball player, and you seem really passionate about this. You have a unique background. Do you want to come chat?
Yeah.
And they're all like, sometimes they're like, oh, that sounds really cool. Like I'm nervous, and you'd be like, no, it's super easy. Don't be nervous. Like trust me. Like I'll walk you through it. It'll be fine. Or like sometimes they're just stoked. They're just like, yeah, let's do it.
That's cool.
I don't think I've ever had anyone say no.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good.
I've had people be nervous, but I've never had anyone say no.
Have you had any like hot shots, names that I would know?
No.
Outside of
No, I don't think so.
Is that your goal?
No, honestly, my goal is to have, because obviously it's very inspired by the format of Joe Rogan, because almost every podcast is at this point.
Yeah.
But like Joe Rogan, apart from like interviewing really cool people, he's almost putting together a library of like the elites of history.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool thing. Mine, I thought, would be cool to like show that average people are awesome as well.
I like
Like
that.
they have something to share and a unique experience. And while they may never have a platform like Joe Rogan or like Theo Vaughn, like I have a platform, that like tens to hundreds of people, even though it's not like millions of people, and maybe one day thousands of people. But like they still have cool experiences and relatable stories and things that are interesting and entertaining.
Yeah.
That they can share.
I like that. Each person is unique, and I believe that each person has some story to share that, if not useful, is still interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not to say I would like deny anyone, because like even like a school, like a college athlete is still kind of a big name, but it's not like a big name. You know what I mean?
It's in that weird sub tier.
Right. And I wouldn't mind, like that would be sick to get up to that point to where like I did have enough of like a reputation that I could ask someone who was like of a little more status, but that was never the goal, and I don't think it ever will be.
Is it just a recreational fun project for you, or hoping to take it anywhere?
Yeah, right now I do a lot of side projects, and we should talk about my philosophy on that later. But I have a lot of random side ventures. This is the only one that's like stayed pure.
Podcast.
Yeah, I've never had money intentions behind it. Spotify, before they bought Anchor did pay you right off.
Really?
That,
for a single listen? Like how does that work?
So it's called, the way most stuff works, it's called CPM, which is how much you get paid per 1,000 listens. I don't know why it's 10.
Okay. Million.
But it's 1,000.
Not million. Millennia.
And you would get $10 per 1,000 listens.
Okay.
Which is like kind of dope.
Yeah. Of course, I'd have to crunch the numbers there. I have no idea what like it takes for 1,000. Because how much does your typical podcast? If you were to release an episode today, in the next week, how many listens would that be?
So when I was being consistent, they were getting in the hundreds. When I started to space them out, it was like
20. Really? So the more consistent. By consistent, you mean like weekly?
No, I was doing monthly. I was trying to do monthly for a while, or even like every other month.
Yeah.
But when I would go months and months in between, it like started.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I might be wrong on the CPM being $10 for every 1,000, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
It's that kind of ballpark.
Because I have in my account, you can go look, and it won't let you cash out until you hit $10. I have $9.72.
You're so close.
And that's
Hi, everybody. If you're listening to this podcast, go check out the Mason Grant Show.
It got
$10.
They took away my because when Spotify bought it, they took away monetization and they put a threshold on it.
Oh,
so you have to have a certain amount of listeners.
I did see that as I was signing up for this platform just like an hour ago.
Yeah.
It was like, just these are the stipulations. Once you hit like X amount of hours, X amount of listens, X amount of
exactly.
At that point we start monetizing.
So it used to not be that way. It used to be anyone, and it changed at $9.72. So I'm like a quarter away.
So close. I feel bad.
I need to. If I wanted to make money, I would have to go on a grind to hit it, to then hit the $10. But the thing is, like going back to the original question, this was never about money. Like a lot of the side projects I do are to try and like see if I can make money with this way, or see if this works. Like a lot of my hobbies are surrounded by either making or saving money. Like I just get kind of a thrill out of that.
Yeah.
This one was never that, and it still isn't. And because of that, I'm not as consistent with it, but also there's no pressure behind it, and it's just a creative outlet.
I like that. Simply a free flow, whatever you want to make out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I think it's important you have those things in life outside of the pressure of making money or saving money or expectations. Just, this is purely something creative that I do in my own spare time whenever I feel like it.
Yep. It's so important because I don't know. I like, especially at this phase in life, like you get so caught up in, trying to hit certain goals, and every decision is based on a goal.
Yeah.
And like, and a lot of those goals are financial, right? Like money makes the world go around. You have to eat, right?
Yeah.
But not every decision, and I didn't make this up. I heard this somewhere. I don't know where I heard it, but not every decision has to be a financial decision. It can not make sense financially and still be the right decision to make.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I thought the same thing when we went to the haunted house. It's like, dude, I'm not even big into haunted houses. I'm such a wuss when it comes to stuff like that. Like $30 per ticket. It's like, that's a little steep. It's not like it's not unreasonable, but I had this huge mindset change where I'm not spending $30 to go to a haunted house. I'm spending $30 to have an excuse to make memories with friends, like to go hang out.
Right.
And that was huge for me. So now I think about anytime I invite my brothers to go do something or whatever, or a friend group's going to go do something. It's like, well, look, the financial cost of that doesn't make sense. My analysis, like all that.
Yeah.
I'm just here to live life and have a good time. And if I got to spend some money along the way, I don't view it through that lens anymore.
Yeah. I think it's important to, like, you need to kind of be smart with your money, and there's that whole conversation, but like, it doesn't need to control it.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be as big of a deciding factor.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's coming from a luxurious position of like, yeah, I don't need to consider it. But I don't know. There's always a middle ground gray area.
You need certain things that, I don't know, like if you want to go buy food, you could live off of ramen. And some people have to live off of ramen. And sometimes you need a period where you live off of ramen. But if you, even though it doesn't necessarily make financial sense to, once you start making a little more money to upgrade the food that you eat, you probably should. Like, you're going to feel better if you eat nicer food.
Yeah. No, that's how I felt. Have I ever told you my freshman year, dude, I ate nothing but like kale tacos?
No.
We bought the cheapest corn tortillas from Walmart, and I'd get like kale and like black beans. And that's like, I felt so bad. Anytime I invite Mikkel over, we'd have like kale and black bean and like corn tortillas. Like, no seasoning, no salsa, no sour cream, no guac, no anything. Because I was like, that stuff's expensive. You don't need it. And obviously, we've upgraded since then.
You have, yeah. You have good food every time I come over. You're always
Thank you.
offering good
Appreciate
food.
that.
Yeah. No, I mean, my freshman year of college, I really wanted this keyboard. It was a MIDI keyboard, which is just something. It's a keyboard that you can plug in your computer, and it lets you play the piano.
You get like the 88 key, like a big guy, or like a small little like 36 key.
I honestly have no idea. I mean, it's probably like this.
Is it as big as like mine, the 88 key?
It's probably like a little smaller than yours.
Okay.
But it's like bigger than a lot of them I've seen. So it's not like a little one.
Okay.
But it's not like
a
huge.
Solid size.
It's like, I don't know. I don't know. It was $100 though. In my freshman year, my mom would give me $100 a month for food. So that month, I ate peanut butter and oatmeal that I had already bought the month before.
Yeah.
For every meal, so I could save that $100 and buy this keyboard.
And you went through with it.
Yeah. So I have the keyboard. I think I still have it. I may have sold it, but it's in Texas if I still have it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I really wanted it, and I was like, they didn't let me have a job. I had to like fight my parents out my freshman year.
Really? Because they wanted you to focus on grades?
They wanted me to focus on school, yeah. So I like had no way to make money. I ended up getting one the second semester, but that first semester I had no like revenue coming in. So I was like, this is the only $100 I'm gonna come across. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna eat this peanut butter and this oatmeal, which I hate oatmeal. And I'm not a huge fan of peanut butter.
You're telling me the same way.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Is it the texture? Flavor?
I've never like not liked a food because of texture before. So it's not texture. I don't know what it is.
Did you grow up eating a lot of it?
No.
Because that's my philosophy. If you don't grow up eating something, then you're probably not going to like it. Like my family, we eat oatmeal like 4 times a week. So I'm okay with it, but I don't know, she didn't. So
I had it sometimes growing up.
You did? And you still don't like it? But you also have a texture thing with like anything that's baby food texture you don't vibe with.
I feel like lots of girls have texture issues with food.
It's a girl
thing.
It's
a female issue. Oh, I love PB&J.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to hate PB&J.
Really?
Yeah, until I went on this boat trip with my friends back in high school. I was like, post graduation, we're gonna go party before I leave for Brazil. And they had nothing on the boat to eat except for PB&Js, and I like didn't bring anything myself. So I was like, dude, I gotta eat this or I die. And we were burning like 6,000 calories a day because
Yeah,
wakeboarding or whatever. And I grew to like them. I was like, no, these things are actually that bad. And I've had a ton of them since. So I'm converted.
they're good.
Yeah.
I'm loving the snapshot that we're giving people of this, of like my mom giving me money for food, you partying before your Brazil.
Yeah. It
Right.
sounds like we're so like white privileged.
Well, we kind of are.
In a way, I think you definitely got to be grateful for where we came from. But I don't know.
It just sounded funny.
Yeah.
Because you didn't just go to Brazil for fun, right?
No,
Like
I
you
went
served a
to-
mission trip there.
Yeah, I went to Brazil to go wear a shirt and tie in the humidity.
Yeah, it just sounded funny.
Yeah. Gonna go fly over, then hop on my yacht.
But yeah, I mean, going back to financial decisions, like you got to learn how to make things happen sometimes with money, with what you're given,
Yeah.
and whatever your situation is. And, I was blessed to get that $100 that I was able to, eat oatmeal and buy a
Yeah.
keyboard. But
It's good on you to have the discipline, because I know a lot of people who, I don't know, would rather complain to their parents like, you don't give me enough, I want to buy this keyboard, instead of like, this is the cards that I've been dealt, I'm gonna make the most out of this.
yeah, I feel like my parents definitely gave me more than I deserved, but definitely more than they probably should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting dynamic because both of my parents wanted to help out their kids so much
Yeah.
because they didn't receive a ton of help growing up. They were both in households where it was like you're 18, like go.
Mhm.
Like you need a job or you need to get out of the house or you need to join the army or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they like wanted the opposite for us. And I am so grateful for it. I never complain about it, but I think in the long run it was almost like too much.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, and there was a point where I had to like cut them off, like
Saying it's like,
supporting
you
me.
got to stop helping me because they're hindering my growth.
Yeah, and they didn't want to. Yeah, and even now they'll still offer. My parents are great, right? Like
Yeah.
I zero complaints. They'll still offer. Like, do you need help with this? Like, I know you're working and going to school. And I'm like, dude, like I'm way too old to be taking money.
Yeah.
Like, and if I ever needed to, like, if I was ever gonna starve, absolutely.
Yeah.
But like, I'm never gonna just like,
preload.
yeah, just like get rid of a little bit of struggle. Like, it doesn't feel right at this point. And
Yeah.
there was a point like 4 or 5 years ago where I was like, dude, like.
Got to get off my back. I'm trying to
Yeah.
help me.
Well, and it was funny because my mom specifically, because my dad's obviously like all for it, right?
Yeah.
But my mom like had an adjustment period of
Okay.
like she didn't know when it was okay to like offer help or to like pay for a meal
Yeah.
or like if I'm coming home, like, oh, do you need help with flights home? Like little things like that,
Mhm.
which I feel like are more normal to help with as opposed to like I'm gonna pay your rent type of thing.
Yeah.
And it was funny watching her like her little adjustment period through it. It was
That is
interesting.
interesting. And was that like strictly financially though?
What do you mean?
Like helping you out while you're away from home?
The adjustment period?
Just in general, you said your parents helped you more than they should have. Was that like just financially?
Yeah, well, I think the big one was financially because that was kind of their focus. But also, even with just like doing things, like I've seen, I don't know if it's you that was telling me or someone was telling me they saw a video where the parent made their kid schedule their own doctor's appointment.
If I didn't send you that video, I saw one that was really
I think it was
so
you
we
that-
could have talked about it. Yeah.
I don't think you showed it to me. I think you just told me about it. But like teaching the kid that, hey, you're capable of doing things in this world.
Yeah.
And like I don't know that my parents like over coddled me in that sense, but like being given more responsibility may have been helpful.
No, that makes sense. Have I already told you about the Jocko podcast? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I listened to that
Jocko
one a
Willink?
bunch.
Yeah, no, super good. I used to listen on it all the time and listen to it. And there's this line that he shared where he talked about if you're helping your kid, you're hurting your kid. In the sense of if you're doing something for your kid that they can do for themselves, whether that's like tying their shoes, making their lunch, scheduling a doctor's appointment, then you're taking away their opportunity for them to grow and to learn and to develop and to figure out that they can do these things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's kind of the task, the responsibility of a good parent. And I feel like this is so weird coming from me. Like, I'm not a dad, I'm
Yeah.
just out here living my life. I'm doing the best I can, but I feel like I'm trying to absorb these lessons while I can. That way I can hit the ground running when those lessons do come. But I do think it's not just a parent's responsibility, but even from like friends' perspectives of if someone can do something for themselves, it's almost like a disservice to them to get in their way.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. I had an adjustment period with my little brother. We moved out of the house. So I moved out of the house and came back. And then when he moved out, I moved out with him, and we lived together up until recently. And I had an adjustment period of like wanting to take care of him and make sure he was eating properly and that like he had meals and that he was like going out and doing stuff and not just sitting in his room.
Yeah.
And at some point I was like, dude, like he's got to figure this out. And it was hard for me to like know, like in my mind, I knew he had no food in the fridge and I knew dinner was coming and to like not go make, I was going to make myself dinner and to not make him any.
Yeah. That's tough. It's even worse. I felt this super similar way with my two younger brothers who are here right now at college with me. When they came in, I was like, guys, I'm going to give you a PowerPoint presentation on how to be successful in college. Like, here are all the apps I use, all the tools I use, all the websites I use. Here's exactly how you build your schedule. Here's color code, and like give them everything.
Yeah.
Then after the fact, I was like, how much growth did I just take away from that? Like, because it took me years to figure that stuff out, like all the trial and error and all the stuff I went through. And I definitely think there's a case to be made for, like, we go through experiences and we share those experiences. That way we can all benefit. You know, like, I don't need to go smoke a pack a day to figure out that it's bad. I can take someone else's experience to learn that.
Sure.
But in specific regards to stuff like figuring out how to be successful at college, I kind of wish I just said, you know what, I figured out what worked for me. Go figure out what works for you. And if you want help, if you request help, if you need help, I'm totally here for you. But otherwise, go get them.
Yeah, because it's not necessarily like your, folder of apps that you use, but like the process of figuring out which apps to use is more important than having the apps, right? Like the resourcefulness, like that skill of resourcefulness is more important than having the resource itself.
Yeah. And then you appreciate them more too. Like if someone came to me and said, hey, use this app and it's going to make you super successful and whatever, download the app, you're like, okay, cool, whatever, kind of take it for granted or maybe not really use it as much as I could because I don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
But if you work, like put in the blood, sweat, and tears to achieve that status, then you're going to really appreciate it and make the most out of it.
Yeah. And I think you make a good point, though. There is a balance of like, if your parents never taught you how to budget, even though they're really good at budgeting, and you had to go, all your 20s without knowing how to properly manage money, like there's no reason for you to like lose all that. Like someone should give you some certain foundations. I think that's important. But it's like there's a line where it's like helping them too much to where it is hindering them. And I don't know where that line is. I don't have kids.
Yeah, I don't
like
know.
When I spend a long time figuring something out and at the end of it I'm like, why didn't you just show me that? Like sometimes I still feel that. But I'm sure there's lessons in it.
Yeah. At what point do you jump in? At what point do you let them go? And I feel like it's such a big gray area. And it's probably case by case. It's probably person to person. There's no one size fits all answer there.
Yeah. I don't know. I think back to like my dad was always rebuilding cars and then I wanted to rebuild a truck.
Yeah.
Because I had seen him rebuild cars and I had this truck that I was getting for free that was just dumped. And it ended up being way harder and I'm glad my dad helped and he picked up so much slack. Like it would have never gotten done if it was just me.
Yeah.
And he let me just spend like nights out there just for hours until like 2-3 a.m. just figuring something out. And I wouldn't even figure it out. And then he would show me, it would be like 2 seconds.
Like, bro, come on.
But like now if anything on my current truck is broken, I'll sit there and mess with it all day.
Because you built the skill to have patience and hard work and grit to work through it.
Yep. And then I tried enough stuff. And then at the same time as trying, he was giving that little bits of help that now I do have like kind of some schema, right? Some knowledge to pull from. So things are a little faster. But like if he would have just told me everything and just stood there and been like, turn this bolt and connect this wire and, spray this on there, I would have probably not remembered as much of it, but then I wouldn't have been able to recall it as easily. I wouldn't have the skills to like figure the things out that I don't quite know because not every part is the same, obviously. It's like that experience I look back on as like an example of the perfect amount.
Gotcha. And it requires a parent being perceptive, I think. Like you got to be aware of your kid's scenario. I feel like your dad could have totally been ignorant of your situation and be like, the second he figured out that you're struggling, it's like, oh no, here's the answer. Here's the answer. I don't know, it could have accidentally been for your good.
Yeah. I think he just liked watching me struggle.
Really, so he was perceptive of the whole process.
He knew because he's done it. He's built so many, so he's been where I am.
And he was like watching you observe it.
Sometimes he'd be like, hey, go down there and do that. I'm going to bed.
And he knows exactly what you're going to go mess with. He's like, I could help.
Yeah, no, and I want you to try and figure it out. He would tell me that sometimes.
That's good.
He's like, I want you to go work on it, and then you can come talk to me if you can't figure it out. But he's like, but Google it, YouTube it first, and if you can't figure it out, then come talk to me.
Yeah,
and I think he liked watching me struggle through it because he wanted me to realize that rebuilding this truck was way harder than I thought it was.
Yeah, builds
So
character.
he wanted me to feel that a little bit rather
Gotcha.
than just like make it easy.
Was that the truck I saw when I was in Houston?
Yeah,
No way, is that one?
yeah,
You ever get that thing running? Like,
yeah,
actually,
yeah.
on the street?
Yeah, we finished it, and I was gonna drive it out here, but I didn't fit in it, so the seats don't really adjust.
So did you flip it or what?
Yeah, so I sold it. Yeah. It was kind of nice.
How many years went into that project?
3.5. Yeah.
Dang, dude.
Yeah, it was brutal.
But hey, you came away a bigger man.
Yeah, now if anything's broken on my truck, I'll go work on it until I break it because I'm gonna have to pay someone to fix it anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'll just try
to break it even more.
Yeah, so like either way, someone's gonna have to look at it. I'm gonna have to pay. So there's a chance I can fix myself. Most of the time I can at this point, but every now and then I'll have to fix it.
That's cool
because it's an older truck still. But
how are you with Hyundai's?
Ooh,
totally different genre.
I don't know. I've always, the truck I had was an old GMC, which is American. My truck now is Ford, which is American. Carson's truck is a GMC. So I've worked on it, American. I hear foreign cars are a little harder to work on, but I've never done it. So I don't know.
Well, if you're interested. Not that anything's wrong with my Hyundai right now, but just in the future.
Yeah. I mean, I'm down to take a look at it because I like that stuff. Because every time you do a project, and this goes into like taking away growth, right? Like if you're giving them answers, like we were talking about your brothers, all those things that they would have had to struggle through and gain that growth. Especially with cars, because I feel like it can save you in a pinch sometimes.
Yeah.
I like helping people because then it just adds all that experience to my knowledge. And that's the only way to get better at that kind of stuff.
That's fair. That's cool on you to help. I feel like don't get me wrong, I'm probably lacking in many domains of what makes me a good human being. But I feel like one in specific, like those hard skills of knowing how to fix a car, like from a mechanic standpoint. I never really got that. My dad may have known, but I never really got to sit down with him. Like, here, let's work on the car together. Here's how you change your oil. So I'm like totally ignorant when it comes to stuff like that. My friends all through high school made fun of me. He's like, dude, you go to the mechanic to change your light bulb. Like, what a noob. Like, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's something I want to get good at.
And it just takes time. And honestly, most of it's simple. It's just a giant puzzle. That's what my dad always says.
Yeah,
it's just a giant puzzle. Man put it together. Man can break it. Man can fix it. Right? Like it wasn't some alien technology. Like some dude who might not even have a degree in anything put it together. Yeah. Like you can sit down and watch YouTube and figure it out. So much information is there. It's not complicated. Sometimes it's tedious and it's hard. Mm-hmm. Like if something's rusted or it's like at an angle where you can't reach it. But like it's just a process. So like little things like changing out the bulbs or like changing your oil. Changing your oil is so easy.
Yeah, that's like one thing, like specifically that I really want to get down because it happens so often. I got to do once every
Yeah, and at this point you don't save a ton of money changing your own oil, but like I don't know, I just feel like more like a man changing my own oil.
You're solving your own problems out here. No, that's good on you. I want to get good at that.
Yeah. Well, next time you need to change your oil, let me know.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I think we just got an oil change not too long ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's tough to know like what's a scam and what's not because you're like, oh, your car just hit 64,000 miles. Here's the total comprehensive package of what we recommend at that exact mileage, and it's like,
dude, it's
$6,000 of repairs. It's like, really? Like I just got this thing, like I just went through the whole inspection.
It's all a scam. And that's the other thing is when you go get an oil change. This is some advice for people who don't know this stuff, but like changing an air filter. Mm-hmm. That's a common one that they want to do. They're like, oh, your air filter looks dirty. Okay, you could go buy an air filter for like $20 and they'll want to charge you like $140 to change it.
No, that's what I did. It was so funny too. So that is one thing I know how to do in my car. I found out we have like an internal cabin air filter and an external air filter. I figured it out though. I bought them, replaced them both, super cheap, and then we took it in to go get the oil change like a week later. Like, dude, I hate to tell you this, but your oil filters, or not your air filter is really dirty.
Yeah,
we recommend buying this and we'll replace it for you. I was like, I just did that, and I can guarantee you.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, our bad.
Yeah, they're scummy, bro.
Don't trust.
Oh yeah,
air filters. It's like almost one size fits all.
Yeah.
But the guy came up to me and said, like, hey, you can replace this. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, there's random stuff that they'll say, and it's like, I don't know. I can understand not because when you do your oil, you do get a little dirty, but like it takes like 10 minutes to change filter, and they're so cheap. So it's like I don't know. They're scamming people sometimes, I think. But if you really don't know how, it does need to be done. So maybe it's not a scam.
That's true. And I know there are a lot of like good-hearted, honest mechanics. So like this isn't a bash on the whole industry.
Sure, dude. I found a mechanic that my uncle set me up with out here that I would take my truck to when it would break, because it was $60 to just look at it and tell me what was wrong with it. Okay, so I could just bring it to him, and for $60, he could tell me what was wrong with it, and then I could decide if I wanted to pay him to do it or if I wanted to get it back home and fix it myself. Most places to do that, it's like $100 plus.
Dang.
So $60, and he was really honest. I brought a car into him one time because I thought there was something wrong with it, and he fixed it, and it was something pretty minor. And he was like, "I'm not even gonna charge you."
Dang.
Yeah,
What
he's
a
like,
guy.
he was like, "It literally took me 10 minutes." And I was like, "Are you sure?" And I ended up paying him anyway because I wanted to keep that relationship with him. But he went out of business.
No way, dude. He's too honest.
And I was like,
He's
"Bro,
too honest for this business
yeah.
world. Too cutthroat.
Yeah, he wasn't cutthroat enough.
Man, what a guy. Because I was just going to say, that's too bad he went out of business. Because I feel like a lot of business, especially in the small trades, it all revolves around goodwill and like word of mouth. So if you run a seriously good business, just quality, good customer service, honest man,
Yeah,
you get good business.
Yep.
So it's really sad to hear that case.
He was a little older, so maybe he retired. I don't really know the story. I just
so.
drove past it one day and it was out of
gone.
business. Yeah, and I was like, no.
Dude. Man, all this is not.
I know, it was nice. So now if my truck ever breaks and I can't fix it, I don't know where I'm going to take it. But
Man,
hopefully that doesn't happen.
Oh well. You know, on a total side note, it's like another reason why I like podcasts like these. One, I like those gems of wisdom. And two, I feel like it gives a lot of just history. Like cool stories. Like the story about your truck. Case in point, like I've heard you say that one before, but like 5, 10, 15 years down the road, I feel like there are a lot of good principles there, which I could just forget.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of cool to have like a bank, a vault of places just to keep people's stories and people's histories.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool to do this specifically with like family members. Like my grandparents are like 80 plus years old.
So. My cousin, he went through all of our grandparents and interviewed them. They're
really?
Like, yeah,
like recorded it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
and he filmed it too. So
that's sweet.
We all have private links to these YouTube videos. They're like unlisted, right? But if you have the link, you can watch them of our grandparents just telling their life story.
That's so sweet,
and it's like amazing. And I'm glad he did it because now like my grandparents on that side are both gone, and we literally have their whole life story told by them, recorded.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Bless modern technology,
right?
It's cool to see it used for stuff like that. Like there are some genuine purposes of good that can be accomplished.
Yeah,
through modern technology.
100%.
That's cool. I definitely want to get around to interviewing my grandparents at some point. I don't know if it'd be like a podcast format like this or something.
He just kind of set up like on the couch, and then he did like a tripod with his phone on it.
Yeah,
and was just like
pretty simple.
Started from childhood and went all the way up until current, and then hit all the mile markers.
Were your grandparents like still like, I don't know, for lack of a better word, like competent? Like they could tell their story well?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. He did it before. I don't think either of them really like deteriorated mentally in that way.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, he did it when they were still pretty active.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of scares me. Like every day that passes is, they're probably losing more and more memory, more and more thoughts and stories,
Yeah. It's true.
I'd want to do it ASAP.
Got to do it. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about learning from other people's experiences, right? This kind of ties a couple things in, but like podcasting lets you listen to someone's like career or someone's life or some project that they did, depending on whose podcast you're listening to.
Yeah.
And you get to learn the little lessons that they obtained through their what struggle or whatever they did.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool to be able to apply this.
What a unique day and age we live in where you can absorb so much information like that. Like back in the day, that would have been possible. You'd have to actually know people, like sit down with them and have conversations with them. And here you can just log into Spotify and listen to podcasts on end from all these crazy, awesome individuals.
Crazy people.
Yeah.
I listened to the one you sent me where the guy like lives in the Amazon.
Oh yeah. I forget his name. We should get a third person here to just like fact check and bring stuff up, like Joe.
Yeah, we need a Jamie. Useful. That'll be Mikkel's job.
Hi, Mikkel, you on it? No, sorry. It's okay.
But yeah, I mean, it was just like, it's so inspiring. Like I don't have any desire to go live in the rainforest or to like
have tarantulas crawling on you,
Yeah, and
bit by
like
bugs.
I don't know, I'm not that passionate about saving the rainforest, but like I gained a little bit of passion for saving the rainforest, but
Yeah.
also it was like, oh, this guy just wanted to do this and just figured it out.
Yeah.
Like that can be applied to anything.
That's the thing. There's always universal principles from every person's story, no matter how crazy that story might be.
Yeah.
Like, case in point, I listen to the Jocko podcast a lot, so I'm probably going to reference it a lot on here.
Cool.
But in my organizational effectiveness class here on campus, they asked us, like, what's one leader that has inspired you? And, like, what are the qualities of a good leader? Like, write down who that leader is and all the principles and all this stuff. And I was like, it's not somebody I know personally, but, like, I wrote down Jocko, who he is, what he's taught me. And it was kind of funny because he'd, like, popcorn check people around the class. Like, who's your leader? It's like, my dad, my grandpa, my uncle, my friend.
Yeah.
All these people they know. And mine was like a podcaster who doesn't even know my name. But like, it's no less real to me because, like, in my mind, I've spent hundreds of hours with that guy.
Yeah.
Listening in on conversations, hearing him tell this crazy life stories about something that I probably never experienced, like shooting up bad guys in Ramadi, like crazy stuff. That's such a unique human experience. And yeah, I get to absorb those lessons and apply them to other dimensions of life as well. So how lucky are we for that?
It's super lucky. There was a podcaster who was talking about how he'll meet people who, and it's a weird dynamic, and sometimes they're crazy where it's like they act like they know him because they've maybe have spent more time throughout the week with him than they did their own family, right? Like if you're at work and listen to podcasts all day, and then he's like, I don't even know who you are. And like, but you almost like develop this connection.
It's like, we're friends. You might not know it, but we're friends.
But we're friends, right? But it's like a one-sided thing. It's a very weird dynamic.
Yeah.
I
just got it. I'm going to spend some time thinking on that. That's kind of a little brain teaser there.
Well, I think it was Jordan Peterson. So, the old thing that's like, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I think it was him that was saying you can replace, it was either him or Zig Ziglar, which is some author. And one of them was saying you can replace those people with books that you read and with podcasts that you listen to.
That's cool because that like gives you hope. Because I remember seeing that quote like distinctly. I think it was my 6th grade art class. There was like a poster on the wall. So like, just so you know, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend most time with. And I was like, oh my gosh, the 5 people I spend the most time with might not be good influences. And like, what do you do about that?
Yeah.
And as a kid, it's like, I'm stuck here. It's like, I can't move out of my small town community. I can't switch schools.
Right.
But it's cool. Like, you do have power now to spend time, even though that's not in person.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's just influence, right? Like your brain is like a sponge.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just like, are you reading things that are good? And are you reading just in general often enough to absorb anything from it? Right. And you can kind of outweigh some of the influence of people in your life because you don't need to kick everyone out of your life. That's
the thing.
Right. Like,
it's not practical either. Like, I'm going to have to go to school with my friends. You're going to have to go home to your family.
And it's not healthy to just, I don't know, like I think it is healthy to have people in your life you don't necessarily agree with. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Right. But like, I don't know that you're necessarily like at detriment because of it.
Yeah. No, that's fair. It's kind of empowering to know that you're not like stuck in your situation of influence, though.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's cool. Kind of on a similar vein, have you ever heard the idea that there's like a maximum number of relationships that you can keep up at a time?
No.
Really? I forget what the number is. This might be fun to have a fact checker, but like spitballing here, I think Mikkel, what do you say? Like it was 100.
But like then
it's fair.
Like it makes sense. Like you could be the most friendly person on earth, but there's a finite amount of time and energy that you have. So you can only maintain a finite amount of relationships.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's a lot of relationships.
I know. I was like, that's a ton, dude. I don't know if I could list 150 people who like I regularly interact with enough to say I have a good relationship with these people.
Yeah. Yeah. Relationships are interesting because like I have people in my life who I used to spend every day with, who now I maybe talk to 3 times a year.
Yeah.
But it's like when I do talk to them, we're instantly transported back to that time.
Yeah.
Right. But then I also have people who I used to spend lots of time with who we kind of fell apart. And I have no plans or any reason to ever really talk to them ever again. And then I have new friends who I spend a lot of time with, who I don't even know that our relationships are even close to my old friends' relationships, but I still spend every day with them because they're here and we have connections or whatever. It's kind of interesting.
It's such a strange, especially how fast it all moves sometimes. Like I remember thinking that like we graduated high school and I didn't see my friends for like 2, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes I still haven't seen them.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I have any bad negative feelings towards them. It's just like I haven't made time for us, haven't aligned, and I've cultivated new relationships.
Yeah.
It's just a strange dynamic. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm lucky enough. I have some friends that I met in middle school,
Yeah.
and we all have a group chat, and we text all day, every day.
That's cool.
And it's mostly negative interactions, honestly.
Really, you guys are fighting.
Everyone fights the whole time. And like, it's funny though, because we all know that like we've all been there for each other for so long that like it's just an
So
active
you guys
chat.
have beat the stormy phase of friendship.
Yeah. Like, and we're all so far away that like if anyone gets mad enough and they just need to not talk anymore,
It's like, what are you gonna do? Fight me?
yeah. One of them, a couple of them were threatening to fight each other the other day, and they live like, one lives in Texas and one lives in Florida.
Can you imagine flying out there just to have all your anger like reside, and then you arrive, you're like, Dana, I don't even want to fight you
Just
anymore.
go get lunch. Well, we were all together recently for the first time since high school.
Really, you guys like made time to have a reunion?
Well, there was a wedding,
Okay, cool.
and we all just happened to be able to go to it, except for one person, but it was fine. We just,
Ooh.
I'm just kidding. And it was great. It was just like old times. Like it was very interesting.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Kind of jump back. It's been interesting to see my friends evolve over time. Maybe I'm misusing that word, but like the relationship I once had, because I grew up in a small town, so like I knew the people I graduated high school with since we were in kindergarten. Like,
Yeah.
we went through like 13 grades together.
Dang.
Then all of a sudden didn't see each other. And then similar to you, we had a friend's wedding. We all got back together. We all went like cliff jumping, got pizza, and like it was a good time. But it was so cool to see like I had this idea of who these people were, and then come back like 4 years later. It's like you've changed so much, especially in these years, because I feel like these years of like post high school, college, some people are starting jobs, grad schools, whatever. They're so formative and so development where so much change takes place.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have the structure to rely on. You have to become your own person, right? And that's like the point.
Yeah.
So, in a lot of times, your household and your rigid schedule of grade school keeps you acting and being a certain way. But when you have that freedom to live life and you're kind of just like, you got to make whatever happen, then it just shows who you are and how you get things done.
Yeah.
And everyone does it different. There's no right or wrong way, I don't think. But you're kind of just formed into like, this is how I feel fulfillment here, and this is how I go about providing for myself, and this is how I go about like furthering my life and education and career. Like everyone has their own take on each of those things, but you're forced to figure it out yourself.
That's true. And it's interesting to see how the degree to how rigid they stay to their previous behaviors changes. Like there's a whole spectrum of people who are like, my parents taught me to behave like A, I'm going to behave like A. And then people who say like, hey, my parents taught me to behave like B, I'm going to behave like C, like something totally different. There's a whole spectrum there of people.
Yeah. And a lot of people really struggle in that phase of life.
Like finding their own groove.
Yeah, because it's like it's almost like a breakup. You almost have to like dismiss what you thought life was. And I think for me it wasn't all at once. It was like little things here and there.
Yeah.
But like there's almost like, okay, like this isn't really true. And this like works better for me. And that it can be hard for someone, especially because it's like if your parents are putting a lot of pressure on you for something and you don't necessarily agree with it, it can be kind of heartbreaking for you and the parents, because you almost have to realize like, oh, my parents aren't perfect.
Yeah.
Even though I thought they were.
That's a tough realization to come to. It's a weird one.
It is a weird one. But it's almost kind of like beautiful, because you realize how much good they were able to do.
And that's the thing. I feel
with
like
the imperfections,
with the knowledge and vision of the bad comes a greater understanding and appreciation.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the older I get, the more I realize. I realize specifically, and not to get too personal, but I realize specifically how much my mom actually loves her kids. I think every year that goes by, I realize how like much more intense that is than I previously realized, and then how much my dad has sacrificed.
Yeah,
which you just think like a dad goes to work every day. It sucks going to work every day.
Yeah.
Right? Like the things that a dad has to do to like stay healthy, to be there at every basketball game, to go to work. Like how he balanced that is insane to me. Like I'm figuring it out now. I'm trying to, and like to be at the level he's at is like almost unattainable.
Yeah. But it's inspiring. Like
it's very inspiring.
Now that you understand it, you have like something to shoot for.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Yeah, growing up, man, I thought my parents were like, yeah, average middle of the run, like they're solid parents, thumbs up, yay. Like nothing crazy. Like, I didn't understand that they were phenomenal parents. Like, in retrospect, and now I was like, you guys have done such an incredible job raising your kids, given your circumstances, given all of whatever's gone down in the past. You guys did an incredible job, and I can't say thank you enough. So shout out to you guys, mom and dad.
Yeah, let's go for parents out there.
Yeah.
And maybe someone actually has crappy parents, but I feel like one thing I was looking at when I was dating was I would see if the girl was beyond that phase of like hating her mom, because I started to notice that every girl went through a phase where they hated their mom for some reason.
Really?
And I was like, okay, I definitely want a girl who is like beyond that.
Yeah.
And it like took, like it was like something I would check for before I ever got too serious. Yeah.
What a little flag that I've never known existed before.
I don't know what it is. Girls always just, and obviously not always. I don't want to be mad at it.
Yeah.
But like I just noticed a pattern that a lot of girls were either in this phase or they were beyond it, where they like really appreciated their mom. And I don't think I ever got to the point where I could tell if they were before that phase.
Gotcha.
But if they were in it, I was like,
yeah,
no go.
Need a bit more mature.
Yeah, because I think it speaks to your personal development. Obviously, there's exceptions if you actually had horrible parents, but there is a point in your own development where you like start to appreciate your parents.
Yeah.
And that shows where you're at.
Yeah, because who was it? I think it was Eminem, maybe NF. One of them was like, they initially wrote a song kind of like bagging on their mom. Like, you do such a good, like, bad job, didn't raise good kids, you didn't make the right decisions, I kind of hate you. And then like years down the road, they made another song saying like, I'm sorry I wrote that song, mom. I understand now, like what you were going through, and that the best to kill you.
Yeah, that was Eminem. He literally wrote a song about killing his mom. Like, that was the song.
Dang, dude.
Yeah. And he wrote multiple, like, that was insane.
Yeah.
And then just like said sorry.
Then all of a sudden the script flips, and I wonder like what made that change.
Well, he talks about in the song that he realized his mom was sick, right? Because his mom was an addict, and he was like, you did the best you could. I didn't realize what you were struggling with.
Yeah.
But he also went through addiction too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So him fighting and beating that.
So he has higher empathy now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think. I mean, obviously I don't know the guy, but I used to listen to him a lot, and that's kind of the pattern I noticed.
That's cool. Yeah, empathy is huge. That's cool.
So this is an interesting point whenever conversations kind of die.
That's why I want to have like, not necessarily a list of questions. I don't know, because it varies from person to person, especially if they have like specific niche passions that they want to talk about. Like with you, I feel like you're so varied, and we talk so much, so often about so many things that it's not like chess. Like chess is your thing. Let's just dig into that. You know, I feel like we could take this a million directions.
Yeah, but even like within chess, if say like we started out in that one, we would talk about his intro into chess and getting into his passion, what he's doing.
You can attack it from so many different angles.
And eventually that dies. So then it goes into like, I have to pick something that I found at least mildly interesting from what he said to branch off in the next topic. But I will also have bullets to kind of guide that as well. So like things that I want to know, and then I will try to connect those to things in the conversation if I need to, or sometimes the conversation just flows.
So you do come prepared like with a list of potential things to ask?
I used to write out like 2 pages worth of stuff, and then that turned into 1 page, and then that turned into bullet points, and then now I write the bullet points out, but I don't bring them.
Gotcha. Just kind of luck memory.
Yeah, I just I want some sort of mental structure that I can pull back to, and that was almost like I said, mine has never been to be super professional. It's never been for money, so it was almost like a personal challenge. Like, can I do this with no notes?
Gotcha.
And it was like, it's hard. Like the first couple was brutal.
Yeah.
But now I can do that. I assume I can still. It's been like 6 months since I did the last episode. But,
it's really been 6 months?
Probably. Yeah, probably it's somewhere between 4 and 6. I think the last one I did was chess.
Okay. I'll have to go check that one out. I don't think I listened to that one.
Yeah. There may have been one more since then, but I don't think so. Cool. But yeah, so like, it was like when the conversation would die, because sometimes like it would just get uninteresting or you'd beat something to death. You have to know how to like, in a way that you don't allow the deadness to linger. You have to like pivot,
like transition real
super
fast.
naturally, and just like make it seem like normal, not because it died, but like, oh, it's just
just continuing off that thought. Here's another angle, another thing. Gotcha. I say typically I'm pretty good at it, but then I get individuals like you. It's like I truly am like just chill. Like we talk about anything and everything, and just like let's silence it.
Yeah.
But one thing I actually do want to ask you brought this up briefly previously. about how you believe in a philosophy behind pursuing many different things at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to tell me a bit more about that?
So when I was younger, I and even now, I quit stuff like a lot. Commitment,
Professional quitter.
yes. I would start things, I would quit them, I would move on to the next. I always had different goals and different hobbies. It was to the point where like sometimes when I wanted to do things like is like, oh, like sign me up for basketball or whatever. I wanted to sign up years ago for martial arts. My parents were like, dude, that is too expensive of something for you just to jump in. Wait.
What type of martial art?
I don't know. It was when the
Just
freaking Will Smith's kid
Probably karate. Yeah.
did Karate Kid, and I was like, I just want to go learn how to fight people. That was sick. He did a backflip. Like,
yeah.
and like I just get really excited about things and want to try them, and then I learn the basics, and then after you learn the basics, it starts to get hard.
Mhm.
And you know, once I'm better than the average person, I'm like, who cares?
Okay.
Like I never received any expertise in anything,
Mhm.
and I always saw that as a flaw and something that I wanted to kind of kick. And you know,
Like moving beyond average.
yeah, and like
sticking to it.
dedication to something.
Mhm.
You know, like the girl I'm dating now, Erin, she played college basketball. So like she took a little thing that I did throughout my childhood. And like, you know, I have context. I played basketball for a long time. I'm not great at it, but I'm not bad. And she took it to a level that I never even like imagined taking it. Like
Yeah.
that's something that like the
Like it
crazy
never
people
even
do.
crossed your mind that you could be a collegiate athlete.
Yeah, like that I even like wanted to.
Mhm.
Right. And like it's just not what I did. I got average and I didn't know how to push beyond that. Like once the resistance started, it's like, okay, this is just how good I am at this thing.
Yeah.
Like it never occurred to me to like, push further than that. And I never cared about anything enough to want to push it further than that.
Mhm.
So, and I don't even know if I have anything in my life now that I'm still kind of like that. But I used to see that as a flaw, and I really wanted to be really, really good at something. And I was always jealous because I never really cared enough. And I always was jumping. There was always new things, and I just wanted to try it. Well, I just kind of lived my life that way. And, you know, eventually things would come around. Like it's taken me almost 9 years to graduate with a bachelor's degree, right? Which is crazy. Next semester, my last semester. But it's just something that I just like whittled away at, came back to. It was nothing. I dedicated everything to it for a period of time. Zero fulfillment from it. So life just kind of sucked. So I eventually just realized that I just liked trying things. Like that was kind of my passion, which is like learning.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily like taking things to a level. So then the podcast was kind of born out of that, where it was like, if you look at starting anything online, it's always like niche down, pick something you're going to become an expert in. You don't have to be an expert in it. Niche down, commit to learning it. It's like, that sounds so boring.
Yeah.
Right. Like
pigeonholing yourself into one little tiny.
Yeah. And like, I understand that like there's strategy behind that as a reason.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, if it's not about money, like I can start this podcast, just talk to everyone who's exciting. And then maybe the point of it is just to like inspire people. Maybe that's the one thing. It's like I could just interview people, I get good at talking to people. And you know, that'll be like my niche or whatever that they want you to have.
Gotcha.
But I found recently, this is very recent, a guy who his whole philosophy on business is to start multiple side businesses. And there's a couple benefits to that. One, you never have to push it and be like an industry giant.
Mm-hmm.
There's very low expectation. So even if it only mildly works and it's not scalable, it still contributes to the overall plan. But then also you get to try different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I've kind of been leaning into that recently. So like, for example, this guy is like an investor and he's kind of into crypto. So he's like, well, I could totally like, I'm in the crypto space. That's something I like. I could totally like lean into making merch for crypto and sell it on Etsy. And I might make $400 a month on it, but I am pretty positive I could scale it to almost that. And then that is $400 a month. And then if I get bored of that or it's not scalable, the audience isn't there, I could just leave it at that and then go to the next thing that makes whatever, another 200, 1,000 or whatever. And then you can have all these little side projects that can eventually be automated, and maybe they're not making you hundreds of thousands of dollars, but altogether you might sustain a lifestyle.
Gosh.
And I'd never heard anyone talk like that before.
No, that's so unique. You don't hear that because you're double down, go super specific, find your niche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you do that, but it's not like you're committing to it forever. It's almost like, you know, maybe you commit to it for like a year, right? And then once you get it to where it's going to be, if you love it, you keep going, right? Because obviously you can grow it, or you just leave it there and then pivot.
Gotcha. I feel like that leverages the law of diminishing returns, which you probably heard about, but where in order to get to the next segment of returns, it takes exponentially greater effort. I wish I had like a visual like put up, but it's like a graph that looks like this,
Yeah.
where in order to achieve like the next percentage of return, you got to put in like an extra $1 million, you know? So like
Right.
in order to get to the top 1% of martial arts, it's going to take so much greater. And if you want to get to the top 10% of martial arts.
Yeah, and there's a guy, the naval or novel or whatever. He's the Indian
that guy,
guy. Yeah.
Super cool podcast.
Dude, he's
Love
dope. I didn't realize he was like a billion. By the way,
Yeah.
I just thought he was some dude.
No, he's like a venture capitalist.
Yeah, he's crazy.
big time.
So he talks about how getting to the top 1% of something is almost unrealistic.
Yeah.
So he recommends getting to the top 25% of 3 different things.
Mm-hmm.
And then that combination puts you at the top 1% of those 3 combinations.
Yeah.
Because no one else does that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I have learned that I need to reel in and really focus on things for at least periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that there is an extra level of effort that I had to learn to put in. But that I don't necessarily have to be like distraught that I'm just like assuming this identity now.
Yeah.
Because I can have a passion that I lean into, but I can have these other passions that will also work. So I've kind of had to learn a balance between like, okay, it's like I don't necessarily have a flaw of quitting, but I do have a flaw of like not taking things to the level that I need to see success. Like I'm always like getting decent at something, and then before I can like push that decentness to the next level to be like pretty good and see success from it, I always just am done. Like I've learned my lessons from it, but there's a phase after that where once you kind of learn the lessons, like you can actually see some success from those lessons. And I always would quit before that.
Yeah.
So I've learned that there is a phase or two after, but I also learned that like it's okay to have this wide base instead of like a deep base of knowledge.
Totally.
And there is benefits to that.
No, most definitely. I feel like this is one of the biggest reasons why me and you just vibe together. It's because we're very similar in that perspective of well-roundedness. I was reading, I think it was an article. I'm not 100% sure, but it's talking about Olympic athletes. Like, what does it take to be an Olympian? And I don't know about you, but I always grew up believing that, like, those Olympians, man, they started when they were 3 years old doing gymnastics, and that's like all they ever.
Yeah.
You know, the article was talking about when they interviewed these Olympians, a lot of them credited playing multiple sports throughout their childhood to their being successful as an Olympian.
Oh, that's kind of
Yeah,
crazy.
it's like, dude, I did soccer, I did basketball, I did track, I did cross country, and then I got into wrestling, and then I like all my previous sports knowledge really helped me be a good wrestler, and then the funnel kind of kicks in, and then they specialize.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was like, dude, that's a totally different take that I've never heard before.
Yeah.
And it made me feel a lot better because much like you, I grew up doing like everything. My parents were awesome in the sense that they let me do kind of whatever I wanted to do. So I did rec basketball, I did rec soccer, I did piano, I did some trombone. Like, I just kind of tried my hand at so many different things. And I was proficient at basically all of them, but not like the best. Like I never hit that 1% mark.
Sure.
And there's always been that piece of me that kind of nagged and was like, dude, if you had just like doubled down on something, you could have been really, really good.
Yeah.
But I never did. Partially because like maybe the opportunity, but maybe because my will. And I thought for a long time about that. And I came to the conclusion that I'd rather be a jack of all trades than a master of one. I think that's a better way of playing.
I think it's more fun.
Yeah. But it's more dynamacy. You get to do a whole lot more. And that's not to say we do need specialists. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like, don't be a specialist. It's the worst thing ever. Like, we do need the Michael Jordans of the world. We do need the Mike Tysons of the world. We do need these people who are just so gun-ho on one specific thing that they cause amazing things to happen.
Sure.
But there's also a case to be made for the jack of all trades.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. I used to feel it more, but I still feel jealousy for people who just like have that thing.
Yeah.
Right. That was the point of the podcast, was like I wanted to interview them to like feel that, because I don't have that. There's nothing that I just care that much about.
Kind of a vicarious
like
channeling of that energy.
Exactly. Going back to sports though, Erin, she accredits a lot of her basketball ability to playing volleyball.
Gotcha.
She played volleyball growing up, and
Case
like
in point.
positioning and footwork and stuff like that. Like a lot of that just translated over.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of UFC fighters who took dance from.
That's what I heard. A lot of football players take ballet.
Yeah. Because I mean, almost every sport is footwork.
It's true.
right? And like, what better way to learn footwork than a sport, right? If you call dance a sport that is only footwork.
Is that.
Yeah. Yes. And you don't have to be top 1%, right? Like if you just took like a couple months of it, you'd be, proficient in the basics, and that's probably good enough to translate over, right? Yeah. And that goes into like try different things.
Yeah. That too, from like an identity standpoint, I think it's easy to compare ourselves across one category, kind of like what you were saying. Like if your thing is martial arts and you go to become a great martial artist, jiu-jitsu, what have you, it becomes a lot easier to like almost weaken your self-esteem when you see someone else who's better than you.
Yeah.
But if you think about like, what else am I besides a martial art athlete? I'm also a husband. I'm also a father. I'm also a friend. I'm also a soccer player. I'm also a pianist. I'm also a churchgoer. Like you get all these aspects of your life that makes you incomparable. There's no one else like you.
Right.
And I feel like that's a foundation upon which you can have a healthy sense of self-esteem. Like even if you sucked at jiu-jitsu that day, that's not who you are, because you're so much more than just that one aspect of your life.
Right. And it's good to suck and to get beaten up from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're constantly the best at everything, like you're not going to grow.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's good to be the worst. I signed up for that martial arts gym recently. I don't know if I told you.
Oh, no, you didn't.
I've been going for a week now.
No way.
I've never been so bad at anything in my life. And it's honestly kind of refreshing, right? Like starting from zero, it's like every little movement I'm doing is wrong.
Yeah.
And I've never had to think that closely and had to study and learn that much in a very long time, because I've kind of been in a comfortable spot.
It's a fun place to be. I
feel
the same way.
Some 65-year-old man just like handled me on the mat. And I was like, dude, like this guy could kill me right now and I couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah. Keeps you humble.
I was so humble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a fun spot to be, knowing that there's so much growth ahead of you.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it does feel exciting, because none of it's coming naturally. And sometimes that happens. Mm-hmm. And like that takes a little bit of the fun out of it, but it also has its own excitement when you just kind of click with something. Yeah. But like everything feels unnatural. No. Like I'm doing everything wrong.
Is this jiu-jitsu?
It's jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai.
Gotcha.
So I'm kind of balancing both.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Dang, dude. That's so exciting. We're going to talk a lot about that down the road.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
But to play devil's advocate against this, Jordan Peterson, who I love, so I may quote him a lot. He's kind of an intellectual genius.
Yeah, no, he's a cool guy.
He's kind of a philosopher at this point. He says, as a man, because his audience is men mostly, right? Like that's who he speaks to. He says, as a man, you have to give up. Okay, I guess we'll take it back a step further. When you're a boy, you have a lot of potential. You are total potential. You could grow up to be, a weightlifter. You could be a surgeon. You could be a mechanic. You could be whatever you want. You have the potential. You're learning everything. You're showing promise in everything. But as you become a man, you start to give up some of that potential for actuality. So you have to sacrifice what you could be for what you actually are going to become. And that is a hard transition for a lot of men. So I think that what we're talking about, where being a jack of all trades, could, if taken wrong, become a cop-out for not actually becoming something.
It's like you're mediocre at so many things instead of actually being proficient at one.
Exactly. So you do at some point have to give up some stuff to actually become something. And that's where you see like these man children who never like become anything, and they're kind of flaking and crazy people or whatever. Yeah. Like there is a level of maturity and a level of sacrifice where you have to give up all these things you could be, and you can acknowledge yourself that like, yeah, if I put in the effort, I could become all these things. Like you look at billionaires who are really out of shape, all of them could be jacked, like weightlifters, but they chose to put their energy into business, right? Or you see a chess player who's all scrawny, right?
It's like he could be jacked.
That guy could have been a surgeon, right? He could have been jacked. He could have been whatever he wanted, but he chose to put that energy into chess. And at some point, you have to choose where you're going to put your energy. Now, that doesn't mean you have to put it all into one thing. Yeah. Right. There is still that level of broadness that is viable. Yeah. But don't let that, I've had to learn this. Don't let that be a cop out for not actually becoming and committing.
Gotcha. It kind of harkens back to the age old principle of there's usually, in most cases, a middle ground. A healthy balance to be found between being the jack of all trades, but actually being good at stuff. Yeah. And it's tough because that balance is probably unique for every individual. So finding that for you is, I don't know, maybe that's part of what makes life enjoyable. Yeah. Figure out what is your one endeavor or endeavors that you're going to get really good at.
Yeah. Well, and then like, there's always, my mom used to always tell me this. This is going back to my parents a lot, but everything that you try is going to help you in the next thing that you do. They're always going to be lessons that carry over. So like a lot of the things that I found interest in, I learned problem solving skills, right? I learned a lot of technical skills. So like I'm very good on a computer. I'm very good at learning new softwares. I learned how to talk, how to have conversations, and all of this applies to everything I've ever done.
Yeah.
So it's like I can see it refining over time.
Yeah. It always builds upon each other.
Bless you.
Bless you. Have you ever heard of I think it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Mm-mm.
I only bring it up because, well, one, it has to talk about. But I taught a lesson today, actually, and I brought up the point. Let me see if I can pull up the presentation. Hopefully this doesn't end the recording.
It shouldn't.
Okay, cool. But yeah, it talks about, it's like an axis between your competency and your confidence. Kind of what you were talking about, like with jujitsu,
okay.
like how competent you are versus how confident you become based off that. Let's see, it's pulling up. But yeah, basically it's these two researchers, Dunning and Kruger, and they surveyed a bunch of people. It's like, hey, how good are you at this thing? How confident are you at this thing? And then they like objectively rated how good they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me go. Here it is. I don't know if you can see super well from here.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, so it's this little graph where like as your competence increases, your confidence just skyrockets. Like as you get a little good at jujitsu, your confidence is up there, man. You're like, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm getting so good. And then there reaches a point where you keep getting more and more competent, but your confidence actually starts going down.
Yeah.
And then you get that kind of U shape there. And so, and as you compare that line to what it should be, you know, in a perfect world, your competence and your confidence should be like equal.
Yeah.
You know, not like straight line. You see that in the beginning, odds are you're probably overconfident in your abilities. But then the ironic thing is the better you get at that thing, the more underconfident you become at it. Like, let's say if you're a really kind person, if you think you're a really kind person, then odds are you're probably not. But the funny thing is, if you don't think you're a kind person, then odds are you very well could.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. And
I've
I'm
never
not saying
seen
that's
this.
always the case.
I've never seen this in a graph, but like this is what I was talking about earlier, where it's like when I would try something, it was like right whenever the confidence would start to dip. It's like right when I realized it was more work to be done.
Yeah.
So my confidence of like being able to obtain this was low. I'd be like, all right, next. It's like,
All right.
so I can like see that in that graph.
Gotcha. Apply to your own life. And that's why I feel like people hit plateaus in stuff that they pursue. Like I felt that like in weightlifting, like I'd get really good and I lift really heavy. And maybe like objectively I wasn't lifting heavier weight, but I probably was getting like more fit, more tone, more whatever.
Yeah.
And yet I felt like I was plateauing. I felt like, man, my confidence is just tanking. Even though I'm actually the best I've ever been at that. You know?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's important to have that degree of tenacity that you're talking about.
I think really it was Alex Hermosi. Do you know who that is?
Oh, yeah.
The business guy.
Yeah, always has that little nose patch.
Yes, he always wears the nose tape, which I don't really understand what that does, but he looks
I think it's supposed to like open your nasal passage so you can breathe better.
Interesting. Okay.
Don't quote me on that.
I don't know. He's really strong, so I'm sure he knows about health, but he said he was talking, and I think it was a study he was quoting, where most successful businessmen had this personality type of they never felt like they were doing enough. So that almost goes in with that graph where it's like, if you feel like you're doing the most and you're out here putting in more work than anyone else, that can almost lead to like complacency where you just are like, like I'm already way ahead. But if you feel like you're always behind and you're not good enough and you're not doing enough and you're constantly pushing, odds are you are ahead of most people. But then because you feel that way, you're going to keep pushing even further.
That's interesting. So it's almost like you don't want to have a grasp of reality. Like if you really want to push yourself to become the best, you want to think continually that you're the worst.
Right.
But with enough motivation to sustain continued action.
Yes. But I don't know that that's like healthy. This is just for like if you want to be like a Steve Jobs type of person.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not advocating for wrecking your life.
Yeah. Right. Like he talks about a lot of times like you just basically give up everything else in your life if you want to claim this. I don't know that I care to do that in business or anything. But like having a little bit of that in you is good.
Yeah, that makes sense. Reminds me of a story I heard about, I forget which professional soccer player it was, but a soccer player had a son, like, I don't know, 12-ish years old, playing on like some club team. And the son was like complaining after practice one day to his dad, like, I don't get enough playing time. The coach doesn't put me in. I'm like really good on the team. And yeah, I'm just not getting playing time. And the coach, after like not the coach, the father, professional soccer player, after listening to his son kind of complain for a while, was like, "Quit it. You sound like a loser." It was like, this sounds harsh, son, but what you got to know is winners, even though they think that they might not be getting what they deserve, they keep pushing, they keep getting better. Like, despite of what they think they deserve, they just push and do their best, and they learn, and they grow, and they develop, and they face the struggle as much as they can. Whereas these losers, and I hate to call them, because that sounds so derogatory, but these individuals who think that they deserve something and then quit working because of that, like, you're just hurting yourself at the end of the day. It was kind of cool to see the dynamic between the professional soccer player, and where he got, and his son, and where he is. And like, you just got to work hard until the end, despite of who sees that or not.
Yeah, I think that's might be the biggest lesson I've learned in life, just in general, is that like you don't deserve anything, right? You deserve absolutely nothing, right? You get what you can go out and produce, and people have different circumstances, and some are easier and some are harder, but no one owes you anything, no matter how much work you put in either. Like, it's just like, can you make things happen and can you produce things? I work with a lot of high schoolers, and I'm like in a managerial position, and a lot of them complain about the pay at this place and talk about how like they deserve more pay. And first of all, without even all this philosophy behind it, this job does not deserve more pay. Like, you get paid more than you deserve.
Gotcha.
Okay, just like if you go look at the pay rates, just purely by statistics, you couldn't get this pay anywhere else, or this potential for pay anywhere else. Okay, but that aside, you don't deserve anything. If you want more money, go get a second job, right? Like, go
get a different job,
or go specialize. Like, I understand you're in high school and it's hard, and some of them are even in college, right? So at that point, it's like, I have even less sympathy, right? Because you're not even bound by, like, you have to go to high school. Like, when you're in college, you get to do whatever you want. Like, if you're not happy with the situation you're in, freaking change it.
Yeah.
But like, this job, this company does not deserve, like, you don't deserve resources from them because you just feel like your time is worth more there.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel like your time is worth more, then go do something where your time is valued. Your time's not valued that much here, and it's already overvalued by market standards. So I try to instill that in a kind way.
I don't know, that's the thing, because it sounds so like, you get the typical like conservative, like liberal spectrum, and how like conservatives are like, you work for what you get. And liberals are like, no, we need to have some reparation, some equity here.
Sure.
Like, I also want to emphasize, like, I'm really open minded. That's why I think it'd be so cool to interview like so many people on podcasts like these. But there's a tough line to walk, because I feel like there's no hard and fast line of truth there. Like, what you get is what you deserve, and what you work for is what you're rewarded. But I also think there's something to be said for, like, some people do start further behind. Some people, the cards they're dealt in this game of life just suck.
Yes.
Suck terribly.
100%.
Not because of their own fault. And so they're already starting paces behind others.
But also, if you look at like third world countries, a homeless man in America is like football fields ahead of a person in, some who's even middle class in a third world country, right? Like, the amount of resources that are available.
Yeah.
Imagine not having the internet. Like, just having the internet is a huge advantage.
Sure, that puts you way ahead of a lot of people.
Exactly. So there's always going to be people who have it better off. There's always going to be people who have it worse. I sometimes feel, I don't even know what the word is. I don't feel guilty about it, but sometimes I get like a little discouraged about like how many opportunities I'm given.
Yeah.
And like the life that I had was fairly easy compared to most. But I've met people who had it way easier than I have, and continue to have it easier than I have. Right. Like, but then I've also met people who have it way worse than I have, but then I've met people who had it way worse than them.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can't compare.
There's a whole spectrum.
Yeah. You acknowledge where you're at, right? And you look at the resources you have, and you do the best you can with that. Right. And no one owes you anything. Now, I think everyone needs to look and see people who they could help.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that's where there's this huge disconnect, or lack of tolerance for the other side, whatever the other side is.
Sure.
I think it all stems from that. Like, regardless of your position, I think there are qualities of selflessness and generosity and community that need to be accepted.
You can always help. I was at work the other day, and this old man who did not appear to be super well off or anything, And he even made that clear, offered to pay for, there was an event happening and he knew that there were people who couldn't afford it. And he was like, I have a few $100 I could pay, dozens of people's admissions to this event. He's like, my funds aren't endless, but like I have a couple $100 I could spare if you know of anyone. And it's like, this guy,
That's so sweet.
right?
He's not in an awesome position to do that.
I mean, he's probably giving up his social security that he's pulling. He was an elderly man, right? Like, so he probably just knows that he has a couple $100 that he, maybe takes his grandkids out with. And he's like, hey, like this month I can help a bunch of other people who wouldn't be able to come to this event come. And it's just like a Christmas dinner that's happening in a week or so.
That's so sweet.
So it's like, no matter what position you're in, you should always be looking to how you can help.
Yeah.
But you are not owed that help from the people above. Like, you don't deserve that.
That's a good point.
Right? But those people should be helping in the ways they can.
It's like a tough relationship there. It's like, these people should help you, but you can't depend on them to help you, but they should help you.
They should, but you shouldn't expect it.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's fair. I think that also puts the power in your hands. Like, we're given agency in this life to accomplish, to make our own decisions. Like, nobody can take that away from you. You can have everything else stripped from you except for your ability to choose.
Right.
And by placing that ability to choose in someone else's hands, like, well, I can't do that. Like, who are you to say you can't?
Right.
I don't know.
Well, it's like, do you have like, say you're out of shape, super skinny, super fat, whatever, weak, whatever end of the spectrum you're on. You might not have access to a gym, right? Mm-hmm. But can you go on a walk? Can you do body weight squats? Right? Can you do push-ups?
There's that quote by David Goggins, and I'm gonna butcher it, but some guy was saying exactly that. It's like, hey, I don't have time for a gym. I don't have the money for a gym. He's like, do you have a chair? It's like, well, use a chair. You can work out on a chair. Do push-ups, do air squats, do like whatever.
Yeah.
Like, there's really no excuse.
Well, and it's the same thing. Like when I was in elementary school, I needed money for something. And, my parents provided most things I needed. But if I wanted anything extra, like the piano, they weren't going to buy it for me. Like they would never just like buy stuff like that. It's like, oh, you can wait till Christmas. And I'm like, bro, it's August. So my dad was like, well, when I was younger, I used to go dig through dumpsters and sell aluminum cans.
Yeah, dude, that's a classic side hustle.
Dude,
that's what my family did.
I did that for years.
Yeah.
Before I was able to go get a job.
Good money. What was it, like 5 cents a can?
Well, you're from California.
That's true.
They don't care about recycling in Texas. We would get 10 cents per pound.
Oh, sheesh.
And that was the highest it ever got.
Probably collected way more than I did.
Dude, 10 black garbage bags full would get me anywhere from $100 to $120. That's a lot of cans. Bags, and that's crushed cans.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
So, I would go around on recycling day and I would just take them out of people's recycling bins, which is kind of illegal, I think. I would go to parks. I would go to baseball fields after events. It's Texas, so like it'd be just full of beer cans.
Actually, yeah.
My dad told people at his work, and he had a truck, so people would just throw their cans in his truck after lunch if they had a soda. One time we were stuck in traffic, like stop and go, and there was a ditch next to us. My dad was like, "You want to get out and look for cans?" I was like, "Yeah,
dude."
So it someone's dad may own a store, and they get to have a job at the store. Okay, I didn't have that. So I had cans. Mm-hmm. There's always something you can do.
You did something.
You did something, and that's the point.
Yeah. Just puts power back in your hands at the end of the day.
Well, it's like you did cans too, and you were getting 5 cents a can.
Got way more.
Golly, bro. Like, do I deserve that because you got that?
Yeah.
No.
That's the tough thing. Yeah, you can't argue.
I did the best I could in my scenario, and I got everything I wanted. Like, sure, there were things I had to give up, and I worked hard, and I had my little square of availability that I had to operate in. And is it unfair? Sure. It's unfair by definition that you were able to get twice as much money in your hands. So like, I'm not deserved that equality.
That's fair. And by thinking you just deserve it is a surefire way of making sure like it might not ever happen. Because you're depending on someone else.
Exactly.
Like even if you might not have a lot of power to change your situation, just by acting, you're already increasing your odds of something changing.
Right. And now I could have sat there and complained all day that I didn't have any money and had no way to get money. And I would have made $0. Now I probably made $1 an hour for cans, but I made hundreds of more dollars than I would have sitting there complaining.
Sure. Do that. I like that. If I ever was to make a hard and fast rule, it'd be what we're talking about kindness. I think it's hard to draw a hard and fast rule anywhere, but that's one that I feel good about. And no matter what, you can be kind.
Well, and my parents taught me, growing up in the church, you pay 1/10 of your income. Okay, so you were getting 5 cents a can. I was getting 10 cents a pound, I still paid 1/10 of that to, what you would call charity.
Mhm.
I donated it to the less fortunate.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm getting, first of all, I can't have a job. So I have to go resort to selling trash for money. And then I live in a state that doesn't care about recycling. So I get way less than you.
Yeah.
And I still was instilled with that value that I need to give a little bit of what I am blessed with
Yeah.
to the less fortunate. So it doesn't matter where you're at. You can look,
always be kind.
yeah, you can always be kind.
Because I just want to be so careful that I'm not being insensitive personally to anybody. Because I don't know, and I also feel like you can argue any point, like any solid principle or point that somebody brings up, someone's going to get upset. And the last thing I want to do is step on toes unnecessarily.
Oh, for sure. But I think there is a level of insensitivity that you kind of have to be successful.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I was thinking with this whole podcast. Because I don't know, I went back and forth for a long time. I was like, this is something I want to do, but there's so much risk involved with it. Like by putting yourself out there, you're exposing yourself to criticism, to hate, to people calling you a jerk, insensitive.
Sure.
And like, I'm not trying to be. I want to be a good person. I'm
Sure.
operating the best I can under the information circumstances given me, and I want to be better. But in order to do that, you got to put yourself out there. It's like I could go my whole life never doing anything and never get criticized.
Yeah.
You know, but then you're gonna be on your deathbed and be like, "Wow, I took no risks, and I have so many regrets."
Yeah. No, it's true. And what's cool about this is you're trying your best, and I try a little less than my best to like.
I mean, listen, I don't think anybody really does their best, you know.
Well, like to not like offend or to be open-minded or not exclude anybody, right? When you start doing this stuff, and I noticed this with YouTube. YouTube's a project of mine right now.
Mhm.
I get ripped on every video.
Yeah.
And I'm like things I wouldn't have known. And some of it is valid. But most of it's not, at least in my circumstance.
Gotcha.
I don't find value in the criticism they're giving. But sometimes I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, I should check myself on that. And you never are going to be able to correct yourself without that other person being harsh to you.
That's fair. Yeah.
Right? And they don't necessarily need to be harsh. That's just the nature of the internet. And, you have thick skin. Don't let it keep you from moving forward. But like when you receive a criticism, if it bothers you, dissect why.
Yeah.
Do I actually need to change that, or do I actually not care? Is my pride just hurt because someone said something mean to me, or do I actually not align with how I was acting?
Yeah.
Right.
And then taking that criticism in stride and being willing to change.
Right.
There's a good John By the Way quote where, once again, I'm going to butcher it because all this is off the top of my head.
Sure.
But he said that one of the greatest blessings in his life was people who loved me enough to do something difficult. And that's to tell me like, hey man, you're doing something wrong, like something that's bad, something that people don't like. It's kind of rough because everyone has blind spots, everyone has insecurities.
Sure.
Some we know about, some we don't. And it can be really personable when people call you out on something. Like I felt that, but there is definitely a degree of like benefit to it. Like even if it is mean, even if it comes across as derogatory, mean, insultful, I think you can evaluate that. Take that in stride, see if there's anything to learn from that.
Completely. Yeah. And I have tried to find this line between like being blunt and being honest and like giving someone something that I see as a value versus like just being a people pleaser and just making them think that everything they're saying is fine.
Yeah.
Or doing is fine. Like if I hear someone complaining about money and talking about how money's hard and they're in college and then they pull out a water bottle, I haven't been able to afford plastic water bottles in it forever.
Yeah.
Like in like first like 6 years. I use sink water in a metal water bottle, right? Like I might say something like, hey, one thing I did was I quit paying for water bottles. If you're worried about chemicals in the water, buy a filter or whatever. But in the long run, you're going to save money by just like having this little inconvenience of a metal water bottle, which has a lot of benefits in the long run and for the environment, by the way. Right. But like I've learned, or I've tried to learn, sometimes I'm not good at it, but I feel like sometimes I am, to call people out, but in a way that they like respect you for your honesty.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it comes across as mean. Sometimes it starts an argument. But even in those cases, sometimes it's like, I know that person's going to tell me the truth. Like they know when they talk to Mason, that Mason's not just going to say stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And like sometimes I don't like what Mason has to say. So sometimes I don't want to talk to Mason about it. But like sometimes that's what I need is like the hard truth. And I know no one else will give it to me. Like I have people in my life who've told me that like they come talk to me when they need to know like the truth.
Gotcha.
And so I try to be that, but sometimes people just need to be heard and they don't need to be corrected. And I try to balance that and be aware of what they need at the time. But sometimes it's okay to call people out, hurt some feelings.
That's good. And that's something I want to learn. That's something I want to figure out. I feel like That's something that you're super good at, and that's something I admire you about, and that's something I want to get better at myself. Is that ability to be still tactful, like still have that degree of respect, and say things the way you should. Don't be completely blunt, but still getting your point across. And it's always in their benefit. Like rarely, if ever, do I do something just out of like I want to be a jerk. I want to
Sure.
be mean. I want to tear you down. Like that's almost never the case. It's always like, hey, I care about you, and I point this thing out. I'm trying to help you. And it's difficult to have that come across as like, I'm not trying to attack you personally here. And so oftentimes people like me, and I think a lot of people just never bring stuff up because they don't want to be that person that steps on other
Sure.
toes.
Sure.
But there's value to it. Like people like you are a rare commodity. Not a lot of people are willing to say it like it is.
I'm very bad at taking compliments, but thank you.
Yeah.
But that's something that like I try really hard to be good at. But sometimes it's bad. Sometimes I offend people.
Yeah.
I find myself apologizing so much
Yeah.
for saying things I shouldn't
For
have,
just hurting feelings.
or just being, because it becomes a habit where you start saying what you feel, and sometimes sometimes it just turns into complaining.
Yeah.
And I do not want to be seen as that. And it happened recently. I was at a basketball game, and we were helping train some refs. So it was just like a little scrimmage. And then afterwards, the other teams didn't show up. So they were like, hey, can you stay? So we stayed for an extra like 20 minutes. And I was on the bench for the first little bit. And then they started the game. And I was on the bench when the game started. And then before I even got to sub in, the other team showed up and they like kicked us all out. We were done. And I was mad.
I bet.
And 20 minutes, 30 minutes, who cares, right? Like get over it, go home at that point. I stood around and complained. And then the person who put it all on, like heard me complain about the thing they put on. And then someone who was friends with her, who was my really close friend, kind of called me out on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, like
now you feel like
I feel like a jerk. And I went home and like I thought about it. I felt bad for like 3 days. I texted the person and apologized. And I was like, I don't mean to come across that way. I was, I have all kinds of excuses, but like I did, I'm sorry, basically.
Yeah.
Right? I shouldn't have acted that way. And I appreciate you calling me out. Right. But like becoming a person who can say things in a way that like gets your point across comes with the learning curve.
Yeah.
And I still am in that. Like this was literally last week that this happened. Mm-hmm. And like I still feel embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
But I think a big part that comes along with this is you have to kind of have proven that you actually care before you just start criticizing.
And that's that big quote. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yep. That ties into that perfectly. Like you have to show that you're going to be there for that person. Like, right. Like if their car breaks down, you're going to go pick them up and give them a ride. You're going to go help them try to fix it. You're going to use your skills and knowledge you have in life to help this person in their weakness areas, wherever those are.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to be there to talk. You're going to, let them apologize whenever they act out of line. You're going to apologize when you act out of line. You build up like a rapport, and then it kind of lets you speak a little more boldly because they know you behind the words.
Exactly. They can take the words at face value, accept them for what they are, but then trust that there's love coupled with those expectations.
Exactly. And that, and it comes with a little forgiveness too. Cause like if you say something that's even out of line, like you shouldn't have, they give you a little bit of like benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
Because they know who you are as a person. That takes real work and actually becoming something.
I think there's also a huge part of this is being an individual who's comfortable with apologizing and saying sorry. I think that's also something that's become increasingly rare in that we're seeing in society and in the world. Case in point, at the BYU University of Utah football game, have you heard the whole controversy about how their athletic director bad talked the refs and they got fined and all that? He then went on Twitter and released an apology statement, but never actually said the words like, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Sure.
And it's just like, oh, interesting. Like he said, like there were other means to do it.
Yep.
Kind of skirted the whole actual apology side of things. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he shouldn't complain. Because if you genuinely feel a certain way, by all means, I think you have a right to voice your opinion in the correct manner, but I don't know. You gotta be able to say a genuine sorry when you do step out of line. And then go take whatever corrective actions you want to go take.
Sure. 100%. Yeah. And then beyond that, like you need to actually take the actions, right? You need to actually fix it.
Yeah.
Right. You can say sorry, but then you need to actually internalize that and do better.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you're not going to slip up. Right. But be a jerk less often.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But you're never going to go anywhere by just being super cautious all the time. Right. You have to risk looking like a jerk or hurting someone's feelings or offending someone but then you have to be humble enough to apologize when you realize that happened, right? And then you have to be proactive enough to make moves to correct that.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of that other quote where it's like a ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what a ship is meant for.
Right.
So my whole philosophy is like, man, I'm trying to take my ship out into the sea. It's going to get wrecked. Like, I guarantee I'm going to get criticized. We're going to hit bumps in the road, but I'm willing to take it back into port if need be, make whatever reparations I want or need to do, and then take it back out into the sea and repeat the process.
Yeah. I think one of the most, like, what's the word? Just like blatant examples of this is like, look at any relationship, any like girl that you've talked to and you've gotten close with, and you want that relationship to become more and more intimate and more deep. You risk, and it happens inevitably, you fight and you hurt feelings and you apologize. Why would any other aspect of life be any different?
That's fair. You know, it's kind of like a micro example of a larger scale of all of our interactions. People make mistakes, but forgiveness was huge, reparations was huge, genuine action was huge. And I think you're right. We should expect that not just in relationships, those intimate romantic relationships, but just with strangers.
With strangers, with projects, with endeavors, with anything.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're wanting to start a podcast, you're essentially creating a relationship with your audience. You're going to piss them off sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to piss random people off who aren't even a part of the audience. Right? Like, people are just can just get angry. I've posted hundreds of YouTube shorts at this point for projects and personal things or whatever. People get mad all the time. And it's like, that's fine. Like, I don't know. I like the contention a little bit. But it's kind of fun for me. But sometimes there's genuine stuff in there. I'm like, oh, dang, like I was being disingenuous here. Or I was being a little cringy here. Or like, okay, this was not valuable. I won't do that. But sometimes I'm like, you're an idiot. And I'll argue back. But sometimes I'm like, yep, you're right.
Well, that's nice that you can filter and kind of take things in stride. I struggle with that a little bit. My very first post I ever did on YouTube, my first like YouTube short reel, it was of this grave site where there were these two little graves, and there's like first name, their last name was Eggman. Which I just thought was funny because you have that Beatles song like, I am the Eggman. You're the Eggman. So like I just took a quick video of the graves and like slapped the audio over and like posted it. You know, not really thinking much of it. It's funny, their last name's Eggman. And then people in the comments were tearing me apart, like, how insensitive of you, like posting people's graves. And like one of them was like a premature child death, so like years were short. I was just like, and I felt like such a jerk. I was like, I'm so sorry. Like I didn't mean to like do something insensitive. Like that's not who I'm trying to be. And then in retrospect, I'm like, sure, was it maybe a little rude? Like, sure, but at the end of the day, like it's not really hurting anyone. It's meant to be in good humor, and I don't know. I got to learn how to differentiate like criticism that's meant to like tear me down, criticism that's meant to build me up, and a lot of that I think has to do with perspective. Because a lot of times they're saying the right thing, and whether it builds you up or tears you down, I think it's actually up to you.
100%. Because on the internet, no one cares about you, so everything is going to be with the intent to tear you down. And if you listen to high level people, they don't even pay attention to any of it because it's so negative.
That's what I'm saying. I post and I ghost. I don't read a single thing. It's like, I like that. I wish I could not care.
I found, so in Galveston, I was getting some Galveston photography. There was a girl who's like an OnlyFans girl who took like a sexy photo shoot on graves, like in a gravesite.
Ooh.
So don't feel too bad about
you see, that's what I'm saying.
And because I was like, this is ridiculous. Like,
but I also don't want to slip into the ethical trap of advantageous comparison. Like what I did may have been a little insensitive, but hey, at least I'm not that.
But she was getting praised because she was half naked.
Because all the creepy guys are like,
like, oh, this is cool. And it was like a historical grave thing. So it was like, I don't know. It was a weird thing. But like, people are there's always going to be someone who finds a problem. Like if you look at like some of these communities out there, like there's like the health communities. So there's the people who are like, I don't know, like I saw a video of a guy who was like, hey, start cooking with real food and you'll feel better. And he made like pasta and chicken. And then I think he had like some homemade bread. And then he opened up a jar of pre-made sauce. All the comments were about the sauce.
It's like totally disregard everything else that was good. Focus on the one little bad
thing. And it was like, yeah, it's sure the sauce had, seed oils in it and all the stuff that the intense people in these communities hate.
Yeah.
But like, it was like, hey, he was 90% of the way there. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But like everyone, they're going to find something.
So negative.
Yes.
It's so funny. Every now and then, Mikkel and I do this challenge of finding the most wholesome reel we can, and then go into the comments section.
I'm just roasting it.
It's so funny. No, I mean, we obviously don't comment anything because I'm not
Oh.
trying to be derogatory like that. But just in the comments, it'll be a video of like a puppy rolling through a field, like, you know, just the most benevolent, wholesome thing you've ever seen. And then someone in the comments will be like, "Your dog looks like crap." It's like, bro. Totally unnecessary. And then like they're all fighting in the comments. You get like 60 million comments soon replying to each other. It's like, your mom's a hoe. No, you're like, it's like, dude, it's a video of a dog in a field. Like,
yeah, it cracks me up.
Boy.
I kind of love that energy though. It's sad that like, you know, the wholesome middle-aged woman who's just trying to post their dog has to be caught up in it.
Yeah,
but I think it's so funny.
I mean, it's good for their engagement.
Yeah, it is. On mine, I'll pick fights with people who are already mad.
Yeah,
because it'll turn one comment into 10 potentially over the course of a couple of days.
That's fair.
And those posts always get boosted. But I don't know. I don't internalize any of that, so it's okay for me.
Yeah.
But like if you did internalize it, you would want to avoid those situations.
Yeah.
But I had a post. So all my videos that I'm posting right now for this project are about making money on Facebook Marketplace. So it's just tip videos. They're 12-second videos of a quick tip to improve your odds on Facebook Marketplace. Okay, that's it.
Yep.
I don't even know what the video was that the guy commented on because it's for data. I can't look at them.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy commented on one of these videos and was like, "I've seen demons like you in my nightmares," or something like that.
Bro,
or like the demon in my nightmares resembles you perfectly, something like that. And I was like, "Bro,
are you dreaming about me?"
Dude, as soon as the project's over, I'm about to go roast all these people. But I'm just watching them.
Oh, that's right, because you got to stay out of the scientific.
I can't mess with the data, so I had to kind of let it be.
Yeah.
But there's a few there that I need to go respond to. But people are getting angry at me.
Funny.
For like, I'm not selling anything. I'm not asking for anything. All it is like, here's a tip on how to make the pictures look better. Here's a tip on how to negotiate. Right, very low level things, and I'm getting roasted.
Dang. No one's safe.
No one's
Well,
safe.
you ever hear that thing that they were saying about how some FBI agent did like an analysis of what percent of users online are actually just bots?
Yeah, it's like 80% or something.
I think his report said like upwards of 90%. Listen, 90% of the people you're talking with out there are literally like meant to cause hate, and they're not even real people.
Yeah.
So you could be arguing with a bot for all you know.
For all I know. Sometimes I'll go I get way into it. But sometimes I'll go stalk their pages and
go see who they are. And there's always like somebody with like no followers, some like AI generated profile photo. It's like, it's not a real person, I don't think.
One time it was just this old dude, and all the videos he posted were of his like little dog. He had like a little rat dog.
So maybe a real person.
And he was a real person. I destroyed him.
No mercy for the rat dog, man.
No, dude. He was being mean to me. He came out swinging.
Dang.
Yeah, and he was like telling all these lies.
Jeez.
Yeah, I shut him down.
No safety.
No.
Have you ever gone on Threads, like Instagram's version of X?
No.
Twitter. I downloaded it once just to see what was up, because every now and then when I'm scrolling through Instagram,
it'll come up.
It'll pop up.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that actually looks really interesting. It's like some cool graphics, some graphic data or whatever.
Yeah.
So I downloaded the app, and then I'm just like swiping through like all these little tweets or whatever that people were saying, and it just sounds like a bot. It sounds like an AI-driven machine.
Yeah.
And it's just weird, and like 90% of them are like that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's too much money to be made and too much influence to be had for it not to be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just, that's how it is.
Yeah. Because it'd be such an easy scam. I've heard of high school boys doing this to get rich. They'll like get all these like OnlyFans photos and like make a fake Snapchat or fake account for some like fake woman, and then they just like post the photos, and then they chat with all these older men, and, like accept all their cash payments. And it's like a 17-year-old guy who's running the whole account.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Those are crazy.
It's in a crazy, but like ingenious way of going about things, I guess. I don't know what the ethics are behind that, but it's crazy that works.
Well, it's crazy how fake you can be online.
Yeah.
But it also goes to show, if you go look at the top people in any industry, and sometimes it's not always the top 1%, but if you look at like, you know, there's different thresholds, right? You have like the lower, you have the average, and you have the top. A lot of the times, the top is full of very authentic people, and the average is full of both, right? Because not everyone can make it to the top.
Yeah.
But the authentic ones tend to last.
Gotcha.
And the ones who are inauthentic tend to fall by the wayside. They don't stand the test of time. So it's important to be able to differentiate those kind of people, especially if you're looking for like some sort of advice or mentorship via, you know, the digital environment.
Yeah.
That's an important skill to have. but being genuine sets you apart from so many people because it's a hard skill to have.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not one that you can fake. It's being genuine.
That's like very confusing thought.
Yeah. I don't know. I remember when Joe Rogan talked about maybe having Kamala on his podcast. He's like, I want to find out who she is because, like, if this is all a facade and keeping a background, there's no way you can do it for hours on it.
Yeah.
Which, like, once again, I think is why podcast is such a cool format of media.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, like, you can put on a facade, kind of fake being whatever for like an hour or two, but by hour 3,
Yep.
it's tough.
That's why he wanted her and Trump and Vance and Waltz.
And I think that would have been so useful because, like, I don't know, me personally, I'm not super involved in politics, and that was like the first time I've ever heard Trump just speak and like, just interact with someone. Like I've seen little like snippets on Instagram or whatever, but like I can never trust those things. I take them all with a grain of salt. Like,
sure.
It's probably doctor, they excluded whatever and included whatever. But so it was cool to finally get like a sit down conversation. I just got to listen in on that. And I'd be totally down to do that for way more people, politicians and not, just to see who is this person because I don't know.
Yeah, that's what's so cool. Going back to the very beginning, Joe Rogan is creating a collection that it's almost like a library of interviews of these people throughout history that will be able to be referred to forever, like who they actually are. So it's not just Michael Jordan's highlight reel. Michael Jordan's never, but let's say like Mike Tyson. It's not just Mike Tyson's highlight reel or random interviews after fights later in his life. When he's, you know, maybe not all the way there as he was at the beginning when he was kind of crazy. You know, you get to sit and hear him elaborate, and you know, enough time's gone by that he's out of talking points, and his PR training is, you know,
it's like the raw, genuine self.
It's him. Yeah. And there's multiple, he has 2 episodes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's funny. He has an episode before he started training again and an episode after.
Yeah.
It's like he's all chill, and, you know, he owns a marijuana company, so he smokes a lot of weed. And then afterwards, he's all tense, and he's talking about how, like, the gods of war channeled through his soul.
Dang.
Yeah.
What a guy.
But it's very unique to hear someone have to sit there and talk that way. Someone that you only ever see either pretending to be someone else in a movie or performing on stage, whether that's music or acting or fighting or whatever, or playing a sport. But you get to hear them talk about ideas. You get to hear them off the script, right? In a comfortable spot by a guy who's very skilled with this. It's awesome.
That's true. That'd be really cool. I'd be really interested to hear from these like big time celebrities who I've heard like are really nice guys or really mean guys.
Yeah.
Like I've heard that like concerning celebrities like Tobey Maguire is a mean person in real life. And like I'm just saying what I've heard through the grapevine.
Sure.
So if he's not, I apologize, Toby. But
right.
Like I've heard that like Christian Bale is a mean celebrity, but like Hugh Jackman's a nice guy.
So it'd be cool to see them talk.
It would be cool to actually see that, you know, because I've heard that through the grapevine.
Yeah,
it'd be cool to like listen in on conversation, see who actually is this guy.
Yeah. One thing I noticed about Trump's interview was, you know, it depends what algorithm you're being fed, right? Like, but I noticed that Trump, he almost had a hard time just letting the conversation flow sometimes. He wanted to go back to these talking points.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan kept having to go, people understand that. This is what I need you to answer.
Yeah.
Right. And it took him like 3 times sometimes to answer questions that were very simple questions because of all his PR training.
And or is it just his personality, who he is? Like maybe this is just the point that he knows he can like hammer home or something.
It might be both, because he might just know that this is the best way I can say this thing. And maybe it doesn't quite fit here, but it's close enough that I'll just keep saying it.
Yeah. Because I know there was that one part where Rogan was trying to ask him about like the documentation surrounding the like voting drama. You know, it was something like
yeah.
With it. He's like, what proof, what evidence do you have that the election was tampered with? And don't like, oh, I have proof. I wrote a book or something. But why not make that available to the American people? It's like, oh yeah, but you know, he's kind of skirting it. And Joe Rogan had to ask it like 5 times, and then suddenly you're just like, anyway, so not good.
Yeah, the first one I noticed in that interview was at the beginning. He was like, what happens the first, like when you're in office, right? He's like, you go in, you're the president now. Like, who do you talk to? What do you have to do?
Like play by play.
And he kept going into all the great things that he signed. Right? Like, oh, like we signed this and did like, this. And on our first week we did this. Then we, you know, put this in, which created this many jobs, and the economy went up like this and gas went down. And it was like, everyone understands that. Everyone knows that you help gas get cheaper and you create jobs. Like, you are an economic president. We understand that. That's not what I'm asking.
Yeah.
And he couldn't answer the question.
Yeah.
He physically couldn't. And I thought that was very interesting.
That's so weird. I guess some people just have those like mental barriers or walls of what they want to, or what
Yeah.
they don't talk about. And like in a way, it's kind of an art skill. It's like I don't want to answer that question, so I'm gonna like subvert it somehow.
Yeah, yeah,
There's a
yeah.
funny psych episode where Sean Spencer, the main character, he runs for like Santa Barbara mayor,
Okay.
and before he goes on the talk show, his buddy's like, "Remember, Sean, don't answer the question they asked you. Answer the question you wish they had asked you." So the lady's like, "Sean, what is your plan for the economic growth of the region?" And he's like, "That's a great question. My favorite jelly bean is the black jelly bean." And he's like, goes off on that. And she looks so dumbfounded.
I mean, that's
It's
literally
funny,
how these things go. They're like, oh yes, like how are you going to help single mothers? And then it's like the oil workers are out of business.
So I'm just inserting my thing here.
And that's what's cool about someone like Joe Rogan won't just let that happen.
Yeah.
But some news anchor who's not like a skilled interviewer, like she's
Yeah.
meant to read off a teleprompter.
It's like, all right, moving on.
You're right.
Next
Or
question.
he's used to just interviewing someone who, maybe wrote a book and it doesn't really matter what they talk about.
Yeah.
But like having someone who interviews someone who like could literally kill you, like Mike Tyson,
Yeah.
and can have because even in conversations that aren't intense or there's no animosity, sometimes conversations can have tension, and that can be intimidating.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan doesn't feel intimidation like that, right? Like, so he can push and ask 3, 4, 5 times and make them answer.
No,
Or he feels competent enough or confident enough, leaving it like, hey, the viewers understand that he's not answering this.
I do wonder how much, like, almost if you could get him like behind the scenes, like, dude, which guests have you vibed with? Which guests do you not like? What were you thinking at this specific part? Like, I kind of want like the annotated breakdown behind a lot of these episodes.
Have you seen the videos where they fight?
No, I don't know.
So there's a famous one with Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh yeah,
an interview that just went terrible.
Gotcha. I saw bits of that one, but I always like, once again, like that grain of salt. Like I saw it on Instagram. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if it's out.
He came back on later to kind of retry.
Gotcha.
But that's a famous one. The one I really like is with the guy, Steven Crowder. Do you know who that is?
I've heard the name.
So he's a conservative person. He's kind of like a Ben Shapiro type of guy. He has his own show.
Gotcha.
I don't know what he does. He like recently got a lot of flack because there was some pretty bad videos of him leaked of him just being a huge jerk. And he lost a lot of respect even from his own like fan base. But he was on there and they got into a fight.
Oh.
On the show, like
from ideology points or what?
Well, so they were having a disagreement about marijuana legalization. Okay. And both of them are very like firm in their opinions on it. And Joe Rogan was sharing his point of view and he was sharing his, and they were kind of talking over each other. And I guess that makes Joe Rogan really mad because there's been a couple things where it was like, if you talk over me again, we're going to end it. I've heard him say that.
No way.
Some of them, yeah. He hates being talked over.
Interesting.
So he just starts like making fun of him, and like you can tell he was getting angry.
Wait, Joe makes fun of
Joe.
Okay.
Yeah. So Steven Crowder starts getting mad.
Gotcha.
And just continues to talk over him. And then Joe Rogan, you could see him getting mad and escalating it as well. And then you see him realize, and you can almost tell in the way he talks that in order not to just get super angry, he just starts making fun of him.
Gotcha.
And he starts making fun of him.
He puts on his comedian hat.
He starts cussing at him. And then the dude takes this victim stance at that point. It's like, dude, like, we're trying to have a conversation. Why are you calling me like a mother effer?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, honestly, like, I'm joking around. We're buds. But you keep talking over me and it's pissing me off.
Call it like it is.
And then but like there was like a fight before that happened.
Yeah.
And it's pretty interesting to watch. It's almost like a dance that you can see them doing like conversationally.
Yeah.
And it's pretty fascinating.
That is way cool. It's funny how you get moments like those where you can like obviously tell it's happening, but I'm sure there's so much behind the scenes that we don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he ever came back on after that.
Gotcha.
And then in the years after that, Crowder, got in a lot of trouble and stuff.
Probably not welcoming him back on.
Yeah,
there's an episode he did with these 3 people, I think. I forget what their name was. But there's one part where there's just like one of those 3 guys that was just like dominating the conversation, just always jumping and always yelling something. And I just laughed out loud. Joe Rogan at one point was like, hey, settle down. Just kill me. Just told another grown man to settle down. Like, hey, dude, you gotta chill.
People who are that dominant, I know people like that, like in real life, who are just that dominant in social settings. And it's like, that's intense to just be able to like command the attention of like a room of 10 people or like another person who's like more distinguished than you,
Yeah.
and you just like demand their respect in a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy
It's
skill
a
to have.
crazy alpha move.
Yeah.
And like I hate using those terms like alpha beta, whatever. I was watching a nature documentary yesterday, and it was about these cuttlefish. Which, first of all, dude, cuttlefish look weird. Have you ever seen one? Like what they look like?
I don't think so.
Yeah, pull up a photo of them. It looks like a weird squid face looking thing. I didn't know this fish exists because I've heard like the name cuttlefish.
Yeah.
Oh,
what the heck?
Yeah, it's like a octopus looking thing, but with like squid tentacle mouth.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay.
Yeah, so weird creature. But anyway, it was like the whole nature scene where it's like you have the alpha male and he's guarded this female, and then like the other male comes in, like fights him and then loses, but then like camouflage himself to be a female. I was like, no, the animal kingdom is a weird place where you get like these alphas and these like non-alphas, they can, but then they compete in like different subversive ways.
Yeah.
And then I had the thought, that's actually not unsimilar to humans. Like, as much as we give the animal kingdom like so much hate for being animals, humans are so similar. Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
No, for sure. I have a buddy. He's been on my podcast too. Tyson.
Oh yeah.
He's my roommate.
Cool guy.
Very quiet, soft-spoken guy. He's not super out there and anything. You know, like, he has his moments, sure. Like, he's fun. He's not like he's boring.
He's good at basketball.
He's insane at basketball. I don't know. He's like, I don't know how tall he is, but he's significantly shorter than me. I cannot out-rebound him to save my life because his positioning is just insane. But he demands a level of respect without any volume or any aggressiveness, and I don't understand how he does it. Like, when he talks, people listen, people value what he has to say, and like, people make room for him without him having to take it in conversation and in social setting. And I have no idea how he does it, but it's
so interesting.
It's fascinating to watch, and it's very impressive.
Yeah, because you would see the same thing like in the primate kingdom. Like you watch a documentary on that, you see like one ape just walks into the group, and the other apes like immediately just go quiet, like they know. And it's not like the biggest ape, It's,
right.
There's interesting little like subtle cues that maybe our human minds don't even consciously realize or recognize, but yet everyone's on the same page still.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Because I don't know, like, I don't know all the different like alpha, beta, whatever terms that people have.
I don't know. That's all I know.
But like, he just demands that attention. But like, I only ever see that attention given to people who are loud.
So it's interesting to get one that gets that attention.
He gets that attention without it, right? Yeah. And I've watched videos actually, people dissecting that, but I still don't really understand it.
Yeah.
And but it's great. I think it's fantastic, and like, I admire him for it. Yeah. But like, I do not understand how he does it.
That is so interesting. I wonder how much of it is like body language versus maybe like a history of like being, I don't know, like respectful, soft spoken. Because you probably heard those thoughts where it's like the less you speak, the more people value what you say.
Yep.
Like, oh, like Mason's speaking. What's he gonna say?
Yeah.
Like,
I have the opposite because I talk a lot.
Yeah, and that's kind of my attitude too. It's like I'm extroverted around people I like, and then introverted around people. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wonder if the people who I like hang out with, who I thoroughly enjoy, it's like, oh, Logan's talking. It's what he always does.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm sure that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is also he's a very open-minded person. So I think people know that his opinion isn't like, when I talk and share an opinion, sometimes I like stick to it.
Yeah.
Especially in a close friend setting. Like, I like a little bit of a discussion.
You're put it that way.
Yeah. But like, he does too, but like, sometimes he will, like, he's more like easy to talk to, I would say sometimes. A little less intense. Yeah. So that might be more inviting for people to like give him the space, because they know if I have the space, or if someone else has the space who's loud, they might have to demand that. Whereas like, when he has the space, people like want to give it.
Yeah. Also because they probably know they're going to get it back here soon.
Exactly.
To say a lot. So healthy give and take happening there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge part of interviewing that I had to learn, was to give and take.
Yeah.
And I constantly,
because you're more of a talker.
I'll dominate a whole conversation if I'm not careful. Like, and my cousin and I have talked about this, because we grew up, with families that are loud, and to get your point across, you have to yell.
Yeah.
And like, conversations get heated, and people get angry sometimes, but like, someone will be talking, and you'll have an idea come, and you'll just start saying it in the middle of their sentence, and like, both of us were like, as adults, like, had to realize like, oh, like, I need to not just say I had to wait my turn.
Yeah,
like,
I got to keep that in check.
Yeah, there's an ebb and flow to this.
Yeah. I've been gathering like little data points here or there. Of course, not like actually recording them, but just kind of in my mind on the back burner of kids like you who are raised in families where in order to be heard, you kind of had to be super assertive, be loud, be a little obnoxious, be stubborn in your opinions. Whereas kids who are raised in families where like if you wanted to speak good, your voice was heard. Like you didn't have to be assertive like that. And that's definitely the trend I've seen. That if your family tends to be a lot of like group A type individuals, then odds are like you're gonna be really stubborn, you're gonna be really loud, and you got to keep that in check. And that was weird for me, like going to my in-laws, where for me it's like if my opinion or my advice is not explicitly solicited, I'm probably gonna keep it to myself. Whereas over there, the culture is totally different. Like if something's on your mind, you say it and you interject and you overlap with people. It's like it was just a different world for me to get used to, and they don't mean to be like beyond assertive. They don't mean to be dominating. It's just culture.
But those cultures can clash. So you could see someone as being rude or just loud or inconsiderate, or you could see someone as like, oh, they have nothing to contribute, or they're awkward, or they're shy. When in reality, it's like you just have different styles.
Totally. And I think being aware of those helps not come to those erroneous conclusions of like, oh, you're shy and you have nothing to say. It's like, no, that's not the case at all. Like I have something to say.
I have a lot to say.
I need you to ask me.
Yes, I don't need to be asked. I'll just start talking.
Yeah. But hey, you've done a great job about not dominating. You've never come across to me as someone who's like obnoxiously dominating a conversation. Like I think you toe the line very well there. So it's kind of funny to hear that. That's something you have to be conscious of.
I do. Yeah, I had to work on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, hey, I really got to pee.
Yeah. I have to go. I have dinner at 5 and it's 5:30.
Sweet. Well, sorry to keep you for so long, but thanks a lot for chatting, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, hopefully this worked.
Yeah. Test run number 1. So, thanks, dude. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.